This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you have a comment, email it to me, box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radio detectives. Well, I want to begin by thanking all of those who have supported our listener support campaign. And we've had quite a few come in since I recorded yours truly, Johnny Dollar, on Thursday of the first week. So I'll go ahead and recognize him. Thank you so much to Eugene, Talia, Sarah, and Bob. Those of you who don't have access to our premium site, we'll go ahead and send that information along. In addition, donations above $20 qualify for an additional free gift. And Bob requested we send him Perry Mason. So we've gone ahead and sent out an Audible download for the Colonial Radio Theater's presentation through Brilliance Audio of Perry Mason and the Keys of the Velvet Claws. To take part in the campaign, visit support.greatdetectives.net. And if you'd like to receive one of the extra gifts that you're eligible for, just include a note in your donation and we'll do that for you. All donations must be received through PayPal by September 10th, or if they're sent through the mail, they must be postmarked by September the 10th. Thank you so much for all your support. Let's go ahead and we'll take a listen to today's episode of Barrie Craig. It's called Fatal Appointment.
William Gargan stars as Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Spotting a murderer isn't easy. They don't help. They can be anyone, any age, either sex, rich, poor, or in between. They've got one difference, though. They kill people.
The National Broadcasting Company presents William Gargan in another transcribed drama of mystery and adventure with America's #1 detective, Barrie Craig, confidential investigator.
Barrie Craig speaking. Lots of people shy away from going to a privatized office. I guess they figure it isn't respectable. I guess when you spend a couple of minutes thinking about it, they're right. It isn't respectable. Because it's a confession that something's wrong with their lives. And what's wrong is rarely a bookkeeping error or a mistake in spelling.
You don't care for the hamburger, Craig?
Huh? Oh, the hamburger's fine, Willie.
Then stop looking at it like it was still alive.
I wouldn't worry about it.
No?
No. Even if it was still struggling, your coffee would kill it.
What's the matter with the coffee you get at Willie's Wagon?
Nothing. I'm sure you use only the finest grade of sulfuric acid in it.
You got a tender stomach?
I doubt it. I'm still alive.
Yeah, fine type of customer I get here. Wise guys. Wise guys? Stick to your hamburger. She ain't in your price class.
Who? Oh, see. He could be right.
That fur she's dragging around was contributed by only the highest type minks.
You'd better wait on her. She might get impatient.
I can't.
Huh?
I ain't had a manicure in weeks.
You are Mr. Craig.
I am?
I waited outside the building in which you have your office until you left. I followed you here.
You're allergic to offices?
Well, I couldn't... do you mind talking business here?
Would you like something to eat or drink?
No.
Willie, go polish your coffee iron.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Well, it don't need it.
You're...
Viola Henning. Mrs. Viola Henning.
Uh-huh. And the business you wanted to talk about was...
My husband is keeping an appointment tonight, and I want you to... Well, to...
An appointment with whom? A business associate?
No. With a girl. A girl named Muriel.
I see. Where?
The Grammont Hotel.
She works there?
No. She's taken a room there. I overheard my husband making the appointment.
I don't especially go for divorce cases.
Oh, no, it isn't for that. I'd never divorce Dan. I just want to know.
What time's the appointment?
8.
And all you want to know is if your husband, in fact, does keep this appointment.
Yes. Would $100 be enough?
Oh, more than enough.
Then here you are.
Thanks.
You won't tell anyone.
Investigators with loose mouths don't last very long, Mrs. Henning.
I suppose not. I'll phone you in the morning.
Fine.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah.
For that, you need a license?
Huh?
The babe and the minks.
Just a case, Willie, on the face of it.
The face wasn't bad.
No, but what's underneath? I killed some time with Willie. His feeling is he's a very good gin player. I won enough hamburger for half a dozen cases of acute indigestion and then went on to the Hotel Grammont. I let the clerk in on my little secret. I told him I was looking for a maiden aunt. For $5, he believed me. I found a Muriel who'd booked a room at 8 o'clock. The full name was Muriel Jones. Jones. The room number was 807. The time was 20 minutes after 8. I decided I'd be the boy bringing the ice water. Maybe they hadn't ordered ice water. That would be all right. I didn't have any with me. I lifted my hand to knock, and I didn't get around to it. The door was locked. Nothing happened after the shot, so I knocked after all. Maybe I was naive, but kicking the door in didn't seem practical. I turned out to be right.
Mr. Craig!
Hello, Mrs. Henning. Mind if I come in?
No. No.
There was a girl lying on the floor. Her eyes were open, and they stared up at the ceiling of the room. It wasn't a very interesting ceiling, but that didn't matter. She wasn't seeing it. Dead. Who was she?
Muriel. The girl I told
Yeah. Except you didn't mention you were also planning on showing up here.
I couldn't help it. I had to see her.
She isn't much worth looking at right now. 2-room suite. That the back door?
I don't know.
Yeah. Back door and fire stairs. What else couldn't you help, Mrs. Henning?
You don't have to be so indirect, Mr. Craig.
That means what?
I killed her.
Uh-huh. What's her name?
Muriel. Muriel Jones.
No.
Why do you say no?
That dress she's wearing. Too good for a hotel like this.
That's the only name I knew her by.
Those gloves you're wearing.
They're for driving. Well, that is, I wore them so that I wouldn't leave fingerprints.
It doesn't explain why you didn't use that back door to get out of here after you shot her.
I changed my mind about hiding my guilt.
Tell me how you killed her. Start outside in the hallway. You came to the door, you knocked.
Yes.
She opened the door.
When I came in, she shut the door. She didn't know who I was. I told her.
She liked that?
It didn't seem to matter to her. I accused her of taking my husband from me. She laughed at me. So I shot her.
You had a gun?
Yes.
You shot her. She fell down and died. You heard me knock. You hesitated. Then you opened the door.
Yes.
I've had time to look around the room. I've looked.
What difference does that make?
You say you shot her.
I did.
What did you do with the gun? Eat it? Mrs. Henning didn't have any answers. I found a phone and let her notify Homicide that she'd been out hunting. I left her in that hotel room with the dead girl. Both of them would wait. The butler at the Henning home didn't seem delighted to see me. I think it was my tie bothered him most. I figured if I ever wanted to visit again, I'd get it hand-painted.
Johns tells me your name is Craig.
Johns tells you the truth, Mr. Henning.
Yes. Well, what...
I'm a confidential investigator. I could show you credentials.
Oh, there's no reason to waste them on me. What can I do for you?
Is your wife in?
My wife? Why, yes, she's upstairs asleep.
Asleep? It's a little early for that, isn't it?
I don't see how that's any of your concern.
I guess you don't. Would you mind asking her to come downstairs?
I most certainly would.
I'm afraid you'll have to anyway.
I don't see why.
You're not curious enough about why a private detective is calling?
I'm merely assuming that you'll inform me sooner or later.
Let's say for the time being that it's because your wife hired me to do a job for her.
What job?
The information is confidential.
I refuse to believe
That's silly. All you have to do is ask your wife.
Well, yes, but...
Or are you afraid to?
I resent...
Don't bother resenting. Check with your wife. If she doesn't want to come down, you can throw me out.
Well, all right.
I didn't know exactly what made him go through with it. Maybe it was because his tie was already hand-painted.
Mr. Craig?
Yeah?
My wife isn't feeling very well. She can't come down.
Uh-huh. When did you see Muriel Jones last?
Jones?
Let's just leave it at Muriel. We'll discuss last name some other time.
We won't discuss it at all.
You're not very big. I could push you aside and go upstairs.
You wouldn't do that.
Oh, you're not sure of that. So when did you see Muriel last?
Well, why not ask the lady?
Oh, there's a technical difficulty. She's dead.
She's what?
Dead.
You're quite serious?
It's not a good subject to joke about.
Well, how did she...
She was murdered.
Oh. Well, who would want to kill her?
That might depend on who she really was.
Her name was Muriel Carter. She sang at the Bright Star. Her voice was very beautiful.
She's still dead.
I find that hard to believe. She had such a rare quality.
It didn't stop the murderer.
She was, in her way and in our time, a lovely princess.
I've heard of the Bright Star. It's run by a man named Thompson. He's short, fat, and greedy. As far as I know, he doesn't hire princesses.
Now, what do you mean by that? She sang for Thompson, that's all.
And what did she do for you?
I think you'd better get out.
I'd like to, except I've got a client. I'm in the middle, whether I like it or not. I could say I don't like it, but what good would that do? Did you keep your appointment at the Grammont Hotel tonight?
That's none of your... I had no appointment tonight.
It might pay you to keep in touch with your wife. Good night, Henning.
Good night.
Your wife, who's upstairs and not very well.
Yes?
By this time, she's also downtown having a conversation with the district attorney. Did I say good night? Mr. Henning's face over the hand-painted tie wasn't very nice to look at. I stopped looking at it, climbed into my car, and got away from there. It took me a while to notice the black coupe on my tail. When I did, I decided I didn't like it. Halfway down a block, I swung my car across the road and got out. The car tailing me burned brake lining and managed to pull up.
Hey, get that car out of my way.
What was that?
I said get that car out of my way.
Maybe you'd better help me. Get out.
You're a wise guy something, you're blocking traffic.
What traffic?
Okay, wise guy, I'll get out.
That's better.
Hey,
You're looking for me?
Let go of my arm. Who do you think you are?
Who do you think I am?
Okay. Now maybe you won't be so smart.
That's a nice gun. Got a license for it?
You in the license business?
No, but...
Hey!
I'll borrow it. Thanks.
You can't.
Who put you on my tail?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who put you on my tail?
You'd like to know, wouldn't you? Hey, you can't get away with beating me up.
Am I going to beat you up?
Then let go.
Actually, I don't know. I could.
Look, it won't get you no place.
I'm not going anyplace. I've got lots of time for you.
Go me, will you?
How can I? I'm trying to decide.
Decide what?
Whether to beat you up or not.
You got my gun. You're bigger than I am.
That's right, so maybe you better tell me. Who put you on me?
Mac Thompson.
Thompson. Gentleman who runs the Bright Star, huh? Pull your car over to the curb. We ride in mine. I kind of need a star in my life, especially a bright star. His name was Lester. He wasn't very brave without a gun. Gunmen rarely are. He pulled his car over to the curb, got into mine, and we went to the Bright Star. We didn't disturb the customers. We used a back entrance, the kind of entrance I was accustomed to. Private investigators don't rate socially.
This here's Mr. Thompson's office.
Don't knock.
Mr. Thompson.
Lester, what are you doing here?
He's trailing me. He trailed me right into your office, Thompson.
I had a little trouble with him. He's got my gun.
Indeed. And you'd be,
Craig. Barrie Craig.
Oh, a boy with a license. I might mention that Lester has a license for that gun of his, too.
Makes it nice for the city taxes.
You, could get into trouble taking his gun, Craig.
He could get into worse trouble pointing it at people.
Well, he threw his weight around, Mr. Thompson.
All right, get out, Lester.
Okay, only you ain't sore at me, Mr. Thompson. I couldn't help it.
Get out.
Yeah, Mr. Thompson. Yeah.
Lester isn't a very strong character.
I wasn't a character analysis of Lester that brought you here, Craig.
No.
Now, I don't want any trouble with you. I don't think you want any with me. I have a friend or two in the department.
That's nice.
That license you own has to be renewed every year.
Now you're frightening me.
I have no intention to, merely making things clear.
Thanks. Now, would you make it clear why you put Lester on my tail?
I didn't. He misunderstood his instructions.
Uh-huh. How was Muriel's act tonight?
Muriel?
Muriel Carter.
She didn't appear tonight.
Why not?
Well, you know how these things are.
I don't. Thompson, where were you around 8:15 tonight?
Here, reading a good book.
How many witnesses?
4, 8. How many would you like?
You've got a large payroll.
Thank you. Now that you've stopped imitating a detective, what happened at 8:15 tonight?
Muriel Carter quit the Bright Star.
You practicing to be a theatrical agent?
2 bullets hit her.
Oh? How sordid.
Not to mention fatal. You know something? I'd like to have the gun those bullets came out of.
At 8:15 tonight, I was here reading a good book. 8 witnesses, Craig.
That ought to be enough. Thompson.
Yes?
I don't believe the performance.
I beg your pardon?
You're playing it too tough, too straight.
Which means?
I think you went for her.
That may be true. It's a habit of mine.
I've seen her. More than habit, Thompson. She was worth a gross of your ordinary stock.
Possibly. So I'm all broken up inside by the news.
It wasn't news. Why was Lester staked out at the Henning home?
Good night, Mr. Craig.
I'm still looking for that gun. Good night. The hallway outside Thompson's office had run out of lights. It was dark, and I headed for the floor quick, but halfway down I found out it wasn't entirely my own idea. You get knocked unconscious, and it's dull for a while. Because you're unconscious. But after a while, things change. Something began to pound. It must have taken me 20 minutes to discover it was my own head. I lifted it off the ground, and the air smelled good, which meant I'd traveled. There were trees around and the sky, from which handful of facts I deduced I was out in the country. The gun someone had been careful to put in my hand was still warm. I got to my feet and crossed over to him. He was lying a dozen feet away. Dying hadn't improved his looks any. Lester was very dead. It wasn't a frame-up especially. It wouldn't stick. But it did help use up time. Time? For what? Headquarters had a nice green lamp burning outside.
The trouble with hanging around police headquarters is you can't ever lock the front door.
Hello, Lieutenant Rogers.
Anybody comes in. Even... Hold on a minute while I look around and whisper. Even private detectives.
Some fun.
Barrie, you're not your usual blithe and buxom self.
No background.
If you start dragging in my college degree...
Hide your Phi Beta Kappa key and send a couple of your boys out to my car.
There's something different about your car tonight?
Yeah. I've got a corpse in it.
Oh, how ducky. Anybody I know?
I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, say, Trav, I'd like to talk to Mrs. Henning.
I've seen her. I'd like to talk to her, too.
What?
The district attorney didn't care for her confession. She didn't have a gun to go with it. So he threw her out.
How long ago?
An hour, maybe. Why?
I want to talk to her.
You're keeping it on a very high moral plane. Barrie, why do you think she confessed to the killing?
Maybe because she loved her husband. I understand it happened.
It must be something special.
Sure. Wears hand-painted ties. So long, Trav.
Would you like company? I talk very politely.
Forget it. I'll be back later. Maybe I'll even tell you about the corpse you've got. My head didn't feel too good. Maybe I was wrong. I'd find out. The Henning house was dark when I got to it. I didn't worry about the butler much. It turned out that I didn't have to. The front door was open. The skating rink they used for a foyer was dark, but a line of light under the door down the hall told me where I wanted to go. Nobody noticed my low bow as I went through the door.
Oh, Mr. Craig!
Which way?
The window.
Caught a tail light going around the corner outside. There's nothing special about a tail light. I was late. This is Henning. She fainted. It was a break for her. She could stop looking at her husband. As for him, maybe he was looking at something, but it wasn't anything a pair of living eyes could see. Lieutenant Rogers, homicide. Trav? Barrie. I'm at Mrs. Henning's home. Yeah. It also used to be Mr. Henning's home, but he won't be living here anymore. He's moving into smaller quarters. Underground. Take it easy, Mrs. Henning. You've got lots of time to settle down with your husband's death.
It isn't possible.
It's possible. It happens all the time.
But who could have done...
That's for later. You wouldn't want to confess to this murder, too, would you?
How can you say things like that?
Practice. I need a little information, quick. The truth, maybe. What happened at the Grammont Hotel? For real.
The hotel? I got there after Dan did. From the hallway, I could hear him and that girl quarreling. And then the shots. I wanted to run, but I went in. Dan wasn't there, but... Oh, I can't go on with this.
You don't have to. Just hang around and greet the cops, huh? No matter how many times you've seen the dead, they still don't appeal to you, even with hand-painted ties. I concentrated on the furnishings. They were nice. They weren't the kind of stuff you buy if you're a private investigator. I stopped being morbid and just waited for the cops. They came.
I brought a few friends along, Barrie. Do you mind?
I don't mind, Trav.
I was worried. Where's the object of our affections?
Over near the window.
I hope he hasn't left. He hasn't left. Boys, make with the routine, huh? Wouldn't he cash a check for you?
I'm not killing people this week.
Mrs. Henning?
No. Henning was shot from outside the window. Mrs. Henning was in the room when I arrived and heard the shots.
That's nice. Maybe it's the perfect crime.
Maybe. Mrs. Henning's in her bedroom. I imagine she'll wake up if you knock. So long.
And where, if I'm not too inquisitive, would you be going?
You're too inquisitive.
Barrie!
Don't worry about it. All I'm doing is looking for a star to hitch a wagon to. A death wagon. I figured Mr. Thompson wouldn't be expecting action very quick. I'd been lucky, or maybe it was just because my head was so hard. I'd come to after the sapping in a hurry. I'd been in a hurry since then. I was still in a hurry.
Who is it?
You didn't fill that door very strong.
Craig.
Craig. Hello, Thompson.
You wrecked that door.
I'm too stupid to knock.
Hold it where you are.
What a nice big gun you've got, Grandma.
I said stop.
Okay. I'm up against your desk anyway. Nice hunk of mahogany.
What do you want?
You.
Look, I'm in no mood.
This isn't comedy. I want you for murder, Thompson.
Why don't you come and get me?
I will if I have to.
You under the impression you're bulletproof?
I'm glad you reminded me. Very nice hunk of mahogany. Pity it got in your way. I hadn't hit him very hard. He came to after a while, and we went down to headquarters.
Barrie, where?
Did I go after Henning died? I went to collect Mr. Thompson here. He's going to stay for a while.
You might mention a few charges.
Sure. Murder. Murder of a man named Lester. Murder of a man named Dan Henning. Good enough?
Very good. Any objections, Thompson?
No objections. I killed Lester. He was a weak character. Craig made a point of it. He was tying me in too tightly.
The boy's got good grammar.
I'm appreciating it. How about Henning? Why kill him?
Because he murdered Muriel. You didn't know it, did you? He murdered Muriel. And even now, with me where I am, I can almost figure it's worth it. You see, I did know her.
I left Thompson with Lieutenant Rogers. Maybe, according to his own bookkeeping, he'd been right. I'd seen Muriel Carter and was willing to give him an outside doubt. My job wasn't finished, though. I had a final report to make to my client.
Mr. Craig.
Yeah. Mind if I come in?
I don't think I'll ever mind anything anymore. Come in.
Thank you.
The police are gone. They took Dan.
You better sit down.
Yes, hadn't I?
You hired me. I've got to finish things up.
Things? What things? I didn't know there was anything left.
Oh, nothing important, but... Mrs. Henning, did your husband ever wear driving gloves?
No.
Or any other kind?
No, he didn't.
Thompson's been arrested. Thompson's the man who killed your husband.
Oh? Well, that won't help Dan, will it?
No. Thompson was in love with Muriel Carter.
He had company.
The only thing is, Thompson wasn't the one who killed Muriel.
I know. What does it matter?
That confession you handed me at the hotel didn't make very much sense without the gun.
That's what the district attorney said.
The cops found the gun.
Did they?
It belonged to your husband. They found his prints on it. Very clear prints.
Why bother?
Too clear.
Too clear, Mr. Craig?
That's right.
But...
A man fires a gun, the prints tend to be smudged a bit from handling. But suppose a gun is wiped clean. Then the man's fingers are carefully pressed on the handle. Then you'd have his prints. But they'd be too clear.
I never knew that.
I guess you didn't.
Why are you telling all this to me?
You're my client. Your husband didn't wear gloves. The police give a murder suspect the paraffin test. Matter of routine. You see, when a man fires a gun, small powder particles are embedded in the skin.
Oh?
Your husband hadn't fired a gun recently.
Well, but... Look, I'm tired. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. With Dan dead, they've got his murderer. Why did they make all these tests?
Well, I suggested it. Because Muriel Carter was registered at the Grammont Hotel as Muriel Jones.
She was ashamed.
A club singer? Working for a man like Thompson?
She was going to meet Dan.
No. She didn't take that room for romance. She took it for a meeting with you.
This is so confusing.
You were jealous. You hated Muriel Carter. You arranged that meeting at the Grammont Hotel. You suggested she register under an assumed name. It would look shadier that way.
Shadier? To whom?
Me, the private detective you hired in good faith.
Oh.
You let your husband know about the meeting. That's why he was there. That's why he took the gun away with him. That's why he lied to me later, said you were upstairs sleeping.
That isn't why
Excuse me, I should have said how. The why was because he may have loved you once. You made your confession, nobody believed. Thompson figured your husband for the killer and killed him in turn. But there was something wrong. The paraffin test showed your husband hadn't killed Muriel Carter.
Then who did?
I'm a funny kind of investigator, Mrs. Henning. Most guys in my business get cynical. They wouldn't believe you if you told them the time, unless you had 39 witnesses and a testimonial from your neighborhood church.
And you?
Oh, I'm different. I always believe a client. That's why we better get started, Mrs. Henning.
We're going
downtown, headquarters, where they'll put you under arrest for murder. One way and another, the evidence is all there. You see, when you made that confession in the hotel room, I believed you. Good night, folks. See you next week.
You have been listening to William Gargan in another exciting transcribed mystery drama from the adventures of Barrie Craig, confidential investigator. Tonight's story, Fatal Appointment, was written by Lou Vittis. Next week, it's the strange story titled The Deadly Fight, about which Barrie Craig has this to say.
Next week, I meet a widow who can't find tears, an obituary notice in search of a corpse, and a boxing champ whose biggest win is a fight strictly off the record. See you next week, folks.
Featured in the role of Viola was Joan Alexander. Barrie Craig, starring William Gargan, was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is Don Pardo speaking.
Three chimes mean good times on NBC. Thursday evening on NBC, enjoy comedy with Robert Young as he tries to convince the rest of the family that, without a doubt, Father knows best. Then lovely Rosemary Clooney is guest vocalist with Guy Lombardo and the orchestra on Your Hit Parade. And for high adventure, join Mr. Keene, tracer of lost persons, as he investigates the alcoholic bride murder case. Then Saturday, it's the Camel Caravan with Vaughn Monroe and his orchestra. Now enjoy Meredith Wilson's Music Room on NBC.
Welcome back. Well, Joan Alexander, who appeared in this episode, is best known as the voice of Lois Lane from The Adventures of Superman, a radio series. She also did the voice of Lois Lane in the Max Fleischer cartoons, and even into some of the series in the 1960s, she was the voice of Lois Lane. And she really tended to operate within the world of New York radio, so we don't get to hear her as much on the Hollywood-based programs. And this was, of course, another fine mystery with twists and turns right up until the final conclusion. But this was a fun episode, and kind of the downside of having an investigator who believes what you said. So, well, we turn now to other listener comments. We've got this from Ruth Ellen Gruber, who actually shares a very interesting article she did, a travel article, where she went to Montenegro and searched for the fictional birthplace of Nero Wolfe, and retraced a lot of the steps that Wolfe took in the novel The Black Mountain. So it's a great article. It's in the archives over at the LA Times. The title is Investigating the Footsteps of Nero Wolfe, and you can find that over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Radio Detectives, or you can probably also find it by doing a search online of the LA Times archives. Patrick goes ahead and he also asks, Adam, have you featured any shows which Paul Frees voiced. I'm only vaguely acquainted with his vast career, and I'm assuming he did some radio detective shows at some point. Thanks again, and keep up the great work. Well, Paul Frees' only starring role in a detective series came in the show Crime Correspondent, which aired for 1 month in November of 1949. And there's one episode that survives, and I do have that on the list of shows to do. But beyond Paul Frees' appearance in Crime Correspondent, he has been kind of sprinkled throughout our detective shows. He's provided some voices on Let George Do It. So very talented person. Another one of those actors who provided a lot of voice talent in the golden age of radio. And also, of course, as you mentioned, being aware of the history, a lot in animation. I believe he was Dr. Ludwig von Drake. So very talented, and he will pop up throughout this just to do a guest voice several times. Suspense, Casebook of Gregory Hood, and of course Let George Do It. We'll continue to hear his voice come up as it was so essential in the golden age of radio. And I'll go ahead and we'll share one more comment from Podcast Alley. A simple keep up the great work, Adam, from Joan. Well, thank you so much for your support, and I encourage everybody to vote every month on Podcast Alley. That will do it for today. We will be back tomorrow with Rogues Gallery. And next week, join us for another episode of Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator. Well, I do want to thank some more people for helping participate in our listener support campaign with their kind contributions. So I want to say thank you to Bob, Leslie, Marshall, and Leslie. Also to Harry, who with his donation requests we send along a copy of our friends at the Colonial Radio Theater, their production of Perry Mason. So we've gone ahead and we sent him a copy of Perry Mason and the Case of the Velvet Claws. Nancy also gave a donation and left a comment, says, thanks for both Great Detectives and Dragnet podcast. Although your interest and enthusiasm have always been evident, your commentary and presentation have become increasingly professional over that time. Good job. Well, thanks so much, Nancy. And that's one of the great opportunities with podcasting. You really, unlike in a regular broadcasting, you've got the ability to start at a kind of low level and to improve. So appreciate that. And Nancy would like a copy of Perry Mason and the Case of the Velvet Claws, and we'll go ahead and send that along to her as our thank you gift. Well, now it's time for today's episode of Rogues Gallery. This one is called The Latin Type. And this one is a Mystery Playhouse episode from the Armed Forces Radio Services. So enjoy.
Hello, creeps. This is a very tired T4Y on the Mystery Playhouse. Tonight's story will be told by Dick Powell, who plays Richard Rogue now, in another graphic adventure from Rogues Gallery.
When I got on this rattler for my trip to Central City, I was not exactly a joy boy. I hate riding on trains. But a couple of hours later, I'm a happy chappy. Because who do I run across in the lounge car is a little ambition of mine by the name of Betty Callahan, a newspaper woman who is cheating the movies. She's a pocket-sized brunette with cornflower blue eyes and the complexion which wouldn't come off on the shoulder of my blue gabardine suit. I rescued her from the wolves in Uncle Sam's Clothing, who were making life too interesting for her in the club car. and we retired to my compartment for a talk about, old times.
Nice little place you have here, Richard.
A guy can get pretty lonesome in a place like this, you know, Betty.
Get that gleam out of your eye, Richard. I'm perfectly comfortable right where I am.
Oh, all right, all right. I just thought maybe you'd like to sit here with me and look out of the window.
You're so thoughtful. You haven't even told me where you're going. Did things finally get too hot for you at home?
Please. I'm going to Central City, baby, for the same reason you are. The Charlie Miller trial.
Don't tell me you've learned to write.
Oh, very funny. I'm an expert witness, and I've got a briefcase full of research here. That's going to make the DA very happy. Come a little closer.
Oh, all right. What do you think? Is Charlie going to get to work?
Oh, let's not talk about Charlie. Let's talk about me.
Don't you ever get tired of that subject?
No, it fascinates me. Come on, what are you sitting clear over there for? You like it here.
Why?
Did your mother ever tell you anything?
About fellows like you? Plenty.
Why don't you drop that front page character, Angel? We've known each other for a long time.
Stop pulling.
Well, I was just trying to...
Well, stop trying.
How can you be so mean to me? Ever since the first time I saw you, Betty, I've been stuck on you. No kidding.
Oh, Richard. Did anybody ever believe that line?
Once in a while. You know something's going to happen to you in just a minute, baby.
Will I like it?
Let's find out.
Quiet.
Oh, brother. What's the idea, lady? This is a private compartment.
Please, I'm sorry to intrude. Who is this girl, Richard?
I never saw her before. Who are you?
I had to come in here. My life is in danger. Well, offhand, lady, I don't think you improved your situation any breaking in here when you did.
Oh, why does everything have to happen to me? Why don't you buy a ticket, Latin type, and then you wouldn't have to play hide and seek with the conductor?
I had to come in here. I'm hiding. There's a man on this train who has designs on my life. Guess what Bernhardt could have done with that line. You don't believe me?
That's right. Now scram.
Oh, don't answer it. Please. It's him.
The guy with the design? I want to take a gander, Jim.
Oh, no. I'll answer it myself.
I want to talk to you a minute, Diane.
It's impossible, quick. There's nothing more to say.
I think maybe you'd better. I know where you're going, Diane, and I know what you've got. Now, do you want to come out here?
All right. I'll be with you in a minute.
I'll be waiting.
Want me to take care of that punk for you?
You stay out of this, Richard. Please. Will you keep this briefcase for me? Don't let anyone touch it. Please. Next time, why don't you get a drawing room with a revolving door, Richard?
Oh, shut up. You know, I'm kind of worried about that girl. I'm going to feel pretty silly if she comes up dead. For the next 2 minutes, I worried about Diane and the man who had designs on her life. But I'm a romanticist at heart. So I spent the next 58 minutes trying to spellbind Betty into seeing things my way. But she wasn't looking. At the end of an hour, my chances were still about on the ratio of Little Rock Junior High against Notre Dame. So I gave up.
Well, it's been an hour since our visitor checked out. What do you think, Richard?
The dame's either as goofy as a cub outfielder or she's really in a jam.
If you're pulling me, I'll put my X on the first stanza. Let's take a look in that briefcase she left behind.
Hey, wait a minute, honey. That's my briefcase.
Oh, I'm sorry. Don't get huffy, Richard. Those two briefcases are practically identical.
Yeah, I guess they aren't that. Well, give me mine. I'm going to put it up here on the rack. Hey, what is this?
Pipe down, pretty boy.
Turn the lights back on, Richard.
Shut up, lady. All right, give me that briefcase, pretty boy.
Get that flashlight out of my eyes.
Keep your hands where they are.
Give me that flashlight.
Sorry, lady, but you asked for it. Now, pretty boy. Give me that bag.
Hey, what's the gimmick? What are you pulling that emergency cord for?
I don't want to have to shoot you. Keep your hands out of your coat. So long, pretty boy.
As he pulled the cord, I could see the gleam of a gun in this character's fist, and I didn't want any samples of his marksmanship. But I could hear Betty groaning on the floor at my feet, and all of a sudden I felt that I had to get him before he jumped out of that window he'd knocked out with the butt of his pistol. I made a dive for him, expecting to stop a little lead. When I got where he'd been, he wasn't there. He was behind me. I knew that when I heard the flashlight whizzing through the air. It connected expertly right behind my ear. And there I went again into the land of Nod, which is practically my home away from home. Everything was very quiet for a while, and I slept peacefully.
Come on, Rogie. Come on. Get up, Rogue. Get up.
Huh?
Snap out of it. Betty's been hurt.
Betty?
The man got away. You've got to get up.
Oh, I can't. Oh, my head.
Get up. Get up. Wake up. Get up.
What's that noise?
It's at the door. Someone wants in.
Oh, they'll go away.
Snap out of it, Rogie. Let him in. Betty's been hurt.
What happened? I can't remember.
Remember the man? Remember the girl? He came back and...
Yeah. Oh, cut it out. Stop that pounding. Ooh, my head.
You're in a jam, Rogie. Betty's been hurt. Wake up. Get up.
I can't. What's that pounding? Pounding. Cut it out. Stop it, do you hear? Stop it.
Open the door.
Okay. Betty. Oh, Betty, you poor kid.
Hello in there. Hello.
I'm coming. Just keep your shirt on.
I demand an explanation of what's been going on in here.
Come on. Help me bring this girl out of it.
The window broken. Do you know what that does to the air conditioning in this car?
Well, a man got out of that window while the train was stopped.
Who pulled the emergency cord?
This guy. He came in here waving a gun around, took a briefcase that some dame had left here, stopped the train, and knocked our brains out. I just came to, and he's gone. So let's face it, conductor, he must have jumped out the window.
Yes. And what happened to the young lady who left the briefcase here in your compartment?
I don't know.
Who was she?
I never saw her before. Oh, you okay, baby?
Oh, sure. It takes a bump like that to clear up my mind. Who was that fellow?
I don't know.
I'm holding you responsible for the damage that's been done to this compartment. What's your name?
The name's Richard Rogue. Now get out of here. I'll give you some more things to hold me responsible for. Personal things.
I'm the conductor on this train, and I'm
Okay. We'll still be on your train when you pull into Central City. Goodbye now.
Now, everything's all right, folks. Just get back to your seats, please. We're going to hit immediately. Please return to your seats.
I've heard you were dynamic when you got started, Richard.
Yeah, look. That daffy dame that came charging in here wasn't kidding. That briefcase of hers is full of dynamite.
Was, you mean? It's gone. Out the window.
Oh, no, it isn't. That window jumper took mine, remember? I had it in my hand, ready to put it up on the luggage rack when he came in. Give me hers. It's right over there behind you.
Oh, sure. It's locked.
I want to know what's in it, don't you?
I love life. I just wish I'd never seen it.
Well, comb the hair over that lump on your head, baby. We're going to find and confer with the young lady who spark-plugged this carnival of mayhem.
Okay, I'm in. I owe that brunette a little something. Go talk to her.
My head had that familiar old feeling of having been washed in a washing machine, and I was feeling anything but cute as we wandered down the aisle, asking porters if they'd seen a big brunette wearing a blue pinstripe suit and a hat with cherries on it. That was Diane, you know. Finally, in car 73, the porter recognized the description and told us that the lady was in drawing room A. Naturally, the conductor came along about this time. His glares bounced off that haze of pain that surrounded me like ricocheting bullets. He went with us, under protest, to drawing room A. Oh, no answer.
He isn't in. Why don't you look in the club car?
I did. Knock again.
Why don't you try the door, Richard?
Okay. Oh, it's open. Conductor, mind if we go in and look around?
What right have you to enter the stateroom of a strange woman?
He entered his.
You sue me if you want to, but I'm going in there and take a look around. Nobody at home, I guess.
Well, I hope you're satisfied. Tearing up the train, walking into other people's drawing rooms.
Look, mister, I'm trying to help you. I've been all over this train. This dame has to be someplace.
All right. She's not here. And I can't stand around all night.
Look, over there, under the berth.
I don't see anything.
You don't? Come here, conductor. What do you think that is? Red ink?
Why?
That's blood. Wait, I'll pull these blankets back.
Oh, I'm getting out of here.
Are you convinced now that something's happened to that girl?
Yes, I suppose so.
Well, she must be in here someplace. Open the door to that wardrobe.
Oh, Richard.
Steady, Betty.
Here. Help me move her up on the berth.
No. Leave her right where she is. The cops won't want to move.
Oh, that knife and that smoke.
She's dead.
Yes, she was dead. And all we knew about her was that her name was Diane, and that I had the briefcase which must contain the reason for her murder. A pleasant thought. I took one more look at the dead girl, shuddered, and pulled Betty out of that room. I wondered what was going to happen next, and who was going to be the main attraction. I must have been born under a police star. No matter what I start out to do, I end up in more trouble than a jitterbug at a square dance. Me? I start out to be an expert witness, and I wind up in the sheriff's office in Central City trying to explain a murder. Betty was enjoying every minute of this comedy of terrors, being a news hawk. She was jumping with enthusiasm and theories. The sheriff was jumping with importance, and I was just jumping. I don't like murder unless there's a profit in it for me.
Sit down, Rogue. You shouldn't be so nervous.
Well, we should be getting a report of that murdered woman, shouldn't we, Sheriff? We're not going to get any place until we find out who she was.
Oh, my men are working on it, Rogue. Now, just take it easy. We know our business here in Central City.
Uh-huh. Well, it's your business. It isn't mine. So if you don't mind, I think I'll shove off. I've got a little business to take care of myself.
Just a moment.
We got a positive identification on that lady who was stabbed on the train, Sheriff. And who do you think she was?
Well, who was she? Get to it, Hennessy.
She was Diane Miller, wife of Charlie Miller, who was on trial for murdering Big Joel and Bertie.
No kidding.
Yeah. You can go, Hennessy. Sheriff Mills. Yeah? All over the place, huh? Great work, Sergeant. Okay. I'll have a pick out on him in 10 minutes. Thanks.
Well, what's the good news? Have anything to do with the case?
Well, Rogue, the man who stabbed Mrs. Charlie Miller was Flip Stone, Miller's best friend, and his first lieutenant in the slot machine racket. His fingerprints were all over the knife. How do you like that?
I don't like it. Doesn't make sense yet.
Richard, I'm going to go call this into my city desk. Will you meet me at the hotel and bring me up to date on what has happened?
Sure, I'll take care of it, baby. You run along, keep your readers informed.
You might as well go along with her, Rogue. We don't need your help to solve this case. We're perfectly capable of taking care of it ourselves.
Oh, swell. Lots of luck.
I've heard all about you, Rogue. Just keep your hands in your pockets while you're in Central City. We don't like smart private detectives very well. Remember that.
I was all set to try and help the guy until he said that. I don't approve of people going around sticking knives through other people, and I'm willing to throw in my nickel's worth to see that they're discouraged. Then this politician with muscles running up to the part in his hair gets tough with me. Oh, well, he probably had run across some wrong guys in his time. Anyway, Betty and I lammed back to the Hotel Splendide. We went up to my room because we wanted to talk. She called in her story to her paper, and I sat in the window and talked the deal over with myself. She finished her phone call.
I really walked into a scoop this time. The city editor's having hallucinations. He even promised me a raise.
Throw the bolt in that door, will you?
Why?
Oh, don't be so conceited. I want to take a look in this briefcase all the excitement is about.
Of course, you know you can get put away in the pokey for a long time for withholding evidence.
You're the worrying type, aren't you?
Why do you suppose Flipstone rubbed out his boss's better half?
Maybe she asked idiotic questions while he was trying to open a briefcase.
You know it's locked.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ruin the lock with my knife. Too bad.
That's breaking and entering or something, isn't it?
Illegal entry.
Oh, that'll add 20 years to your sentence.
I'll still be a young man. I get out. Oh, come on. Come on. I'm not going to be browbeaten by a lark. Hey, $100 bills. Millions of them. Take a gander at that, Betty.
Money!
Oh, you catch on quick. No wonder Flip Stone was so anxious to get his hot little pink fist on this letter. You count them, will you?
I'd love to.
There's some letters in here I want to be impolite about.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Richard, there must be $50,000 here.
Baby, this is the works. These letters explain a lot of things.
I'm counting. Wait a minute. 81, 82, 83, 84. Don't bother me. I never saw this much money before.
No? Well, I know now why Flip Stone put the kiss of death on the lovely Diane. He had to keep these letters and that money from being delivered. He didn't want Charlie Miller to beat that rap.
4, 5, 6, 7. I'm through 6,000s already, and I haven't even made a hole in the pile.
Oh, the guy who wrote these letters was a character.
7,
Give me the sheriff's office, please. Thank you.
8,000. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9,000. Oh, I wonder what a nice yacht would cost me.
Chicken, if that dough was yours, you'd be Mrs. Richard Rogue tonight.
Oh, would I? 6, 7, 8, 9.
Hello, sheriff's office. Let me talk to Sheriff Mills. Richard Rogue calling. Thanks.
Gracious. 7, 8, 9, 11,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hello,
6, 7,
Sheriff.
8,
This is
9,
Richard Rogue.
12,000.
Yeah. Come down to 7:30 at Hotel Splendid right away, will you? Well, don't ask so many questions. I'm going to make you a big man. I want you to help me plan a surprise party. Right. Now, hurry. Hey, that's a lot of letters you got there, Betty, darling. Flipstone really grabbed a handful of disappointment when he bailed out with that my satchel by mistake. There wasn't nearly that much money in mine.
Who could that be?
I don't know. Look, I'll get over behind the door. You open it, and we'll look our company over before we put this artillery away.
All right. I don't like guns.
They come in handy sometimes. Okay.
Put them up, lady. I'm coming in.
You can't come in here.
Shut up. Just keep backing up. I want that dough. You split bags on me.
I didn't do it.
Where's Rogue? I checked every hotel register in town looking for him. Where is he? I want to slap him around a little bit for...
Oh, Richard, why did you wait so long?
I administered that pistol anesthesia with masterful precision. Flip was going to have a long ride on the dream train. Betty and I took a sheet off the bed, tore it into strips, and tied Flip up like traffic at Hollywood and Vine. Then we looked around for some place to hide him. We finally picked out a spot that any old maid would have thought of immediately. We slipped him under one of the twin beds. Then we finished counting the money. $25,000. Oh, it looked beautiful there. But I had things to do. I called the sheriff. He hadn't left the jail yet. So I went down there to talk with him. And while I was there, I had a chat with Charlie Miller. A very satisfactory chat. Then the sheriff and I went back to the hotel. Betty made a phone call, and we waited for company. The sheriff and I squeezed into a closet when the knock came at the door.
Who is it?
You just called and invited me down.
Okay. Come in.
Thanks. Now, let's get this over with, Mrs. Miller. I want to get out of here.
Don't be in such a hurry. How do I know you're on the level?
You have the money with you?
Yes. I'll give it to you after you sign this little document.
What is it?
I'll read it to you.
All right.
I, Louis Tobin, a member of the jury in the trial of Charles Miller for the murder of Big Joe Lamberti, do hereby acknowledge the receipt of $25,000 from the hand of Mrs. Charles Miller, for which I agree to hold out against the conviction of Charles Miller and to find him not guilty. I also agree to use my best influence to make the other jurors agree to a not guilty verdict. And that's where you sign.
Oh, you know I can't sign a thing like that.
Now, look, I've got $25,000 in Hudgens ready for you. You get it when you sign your name. Right there.
No,
If you keep
can't.
your word and my husband gets a hung jury or an acquittal, this receipt will be torn up. If you don't, I'll give it to the newspapers. Sign it.
Okay. Okay, I'll sign it.
Here's a pen.
Okay. There, I'll just hang on to this until you give me the money.
Here you are. 250 $100 bills. There we are. You want to count it?
No, I just want to get out of here, that's all. Hey,
Don't move, Tobin. The sheriff and I both have you covered.
You double-crossed me. I was just
Skip
trying
it,
to put...
Tobin. I'll shake him down, Sheriff. He's got $25,000 on him that you marked yourself.
You haven't got a thing on me. I was just
Take your
trying...
hands out here.
Well,
Miss Callahan, could I have that confession?
Oh, sure, if you'll let me have it back for a photostat later.
Okay, it'll be yours, exclusive. And now I'm going to take this man down and lock him up where he belongs.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Very practical. Oh, here, Sheriff, you better take this money with you. I just spend everything I get my hands on.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you, Rogue.
You better count it.
Later.
No, Sheriff, you better count it now.
I can't take the time now, Rogue. If there's any money missing, I'll be back. And there had better not be any money missing.
I had news for the sheriff, but he was so impressed with his pinch that he couldn't see me. Oh, well, I knew he'd be back. You see, I'm a practical guy. I had palmed and pocketed $5,000 out of that wad of dough I took off Tobin. I showed it to Betty, and she was horrified, but I knew what I was doing. So I just sat there and waited for the door to take a beating. And it did. Who is it?
It's the sheriff. Let me in, Rogue.
Why, Sheriff, you're all red in the face. It's your age?
I knew you were a crook the first time I set eyes on you, Rogue.
You probably studied psychology at Barrie College. That's what makes you so smart.
There was only $20,000 in that briefcase when I counted the money at the jail, and I had 4 honest men as witnesses.
Well, bless your heart.
Where's that other $5,000, Rogue?
In my pocket, Sheriff, and that's where it's going to stay.
That's larceny, and you're under arrest.
Now, is that silly? Look, Sheriff.
Oh, please, Richard, tell him. Don't needle him anymore.
Well, Sheriff, you remember when I went in the cell to see Charlie Miller?
What's that got to do with the missing funds?
Well, he posted a $5,000 reward for the killer of his wife with you, didn't he?
Yes, I suppose he did.
You suppose? You know he did. Well, if you look under the bed there in the bedroom, you'll find Flip Stone, the guy who murdered Diane Miller. It was very simple. I just collected my reward in advance, that's all. My friend the sheriff was a little upset for a while, but he calmed down when Betty brought in a photographer to take his picture for the papers. Isn't it funny what some people will do to get their pictures in the papers? I had to practically wrestle him to keep him out profiling me, the big ham. Well, I split the reward with Betty, of course. Well, I didn't just exactly split it with her. I gave her $2,000. But she didn't want to take anything. Isn't that just like a woman, though? Or is it?
We're a little late, folks. This is T4Y. Good night. Sleep tight. This is the Armed Forces Radio Service.
Welcome back. Well, the second train murder story that we featured so far in the short history of us doing Rogues Gallery. And ironically enough, both were from AFRS broadcasts. I was somewhat disappointed to not hear how exactly Rogue managed to go ahead and squander his reward here. But it does work out fairly well in the end. I got a listener question here from Valerie. Says, "Hey Adam, what do you think of the Mr. District Attorney series?" Well, it definitely was a historic series. It was made by Phillips Lord, who was the same the person behind Gangbusters. And it bared some similarity. There usually was not a mystery. It tended to be more crime drama rather than detective story. But it was still very historic, and it had this very interesting feature of everyone in the story calling the lead character Mr. District Attorney. And I've never heard a name referenced specifically. Although the original model for Mr. District Attorney was the crime-busting career of Thomas Dewey, later governor of New York, who famously looked sure to win the 1948 presidential race, but the Gallup polls turned out to be incorrect. So it was a very historic, well-done series. And I've liked the episodes I've heard, just like I've liked the episodes of other programs, such as Big Town, that haven't quite fit in with the detective genre we're going with here. But it's definitely a good show. And there was actually a TV version as well I've heard about, but I've not yet seen. But thanks so much for the question, Valerie. We'll be back tomorrow with Let George Do It. Become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. We're at 913 as of this recording in terms of friends, and we'd like to get it up to 1,000 by October 12th, when I'll celebrate my birthday, and the show will also celebrate the second anniversary of our pilot broadcast. Before we do get started, I want to say a special thank you to Aaron, who sent along a donation, as well as to Timothy. Aaron requested the Perry Mason radio mysteries as her thank you gift. So I went ahead and sent her the because at the $50 level you can get 3 Colonial Radio Theater audio dramas. So I sent her Perry Mason and the Case of the Velvet Claws, Perry Mason and the Case of the Sulky Girl, and Perry Mason and the Case of the Lucky Legs, and hope she enjoys them. Actually, Perry Mason from Colonial Radio Theater has been the main request. I haven't gotten anything else so far when folks have requested thank you gifts. Also, if you send in your donation and you forget to put a note in the box as to what gift you'd like, just email me and I'll make sure that you get it. Remember, donations must be received by September the 10th. Go to support.greatdetectives.net to donate and also to read about the great thank you gifts we've got for this campaign. All right, well, now it's time for today's episode of Let George Do It, Portuguese Cove.
Personal notice, changes my stock and trade. If the job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard Oil Company of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Portuguese Cove, another adventure of George Valentine.
Okay, here's your mail, Captain. Hey, who sent you those letters with all the fancy stamps anyway, Captain? Madagascar, Port-au-Prince. You got a girl in every port?
My name is Captain Lamego. Sometimes it's spelled with a double.
Oh, here. Dress patterns for that housekeeper of yours, Mrs. Jewell. Hey, how about this? From Manila, Captain Alva P.
Give me that. Put the rest of it in the box, young man.
Hey, what's in it? Come on, Pop, let's see the mystery, huh? You're the only guy around here who writes to any place exciting. Trouble in the Lonely Hearts Club in Manila? You look like you lost your last friend. Hey, maybe some little native girl. Hey, look out, Pop.
Dear Mr. Valentine, that's exactly what I saw happen. He struck him. He struck the mailman. Now, I've lived in Portuguese Cove for nearly 10 years, and for all 10 of it, I've taken care of Captain Lamego. I've kept his house and done his cooking for him in the times when he's not out on his tuna boat. There never was a finer man in all the world. So upright and good and virtuous. And he's kind. The last person who would ever just flare up and strike anyone like that. Unless, of course, it was justified. Or unless, Mr. Valentine, unless the poor dear man is in some kind of trouble. Some kind of danger.
Yeah, Mr. Valentine, he hit me, but I didn't die from it.
We're only checking up on a story that was told us
By Mrs. Jewell? Well, I guess she must have seen it, but...
Well...
But what, my friend? Well, what?
She mentioned she saw him crying?
Crying?
Fall all over himself, dusting me off, picking up my mail sack?
You mean the guy was pretty apologetic for what he'd done?
Well, I never saw anything like it. The old pirate acted like a wrestler who accidentally hurt somebody in the ring. Ram right unbent like a dish rag. So, skip the whole thing, will you? Forget it.
Well, I didn't intend to make anything out of it. I'm just curious.
Well, so am I. Maybe that's my trouble. Look, I'm new on that route. The boys tell me Captain Lamago's the biggest shot in the whole district. I mean, he's the head of one of them old country families, the patriarch, you know? Everybody loves him. Well, I don't want to get in any trouble there. Besides, maybe he was justified. He explained to me why he did it.
Oh, he did? Well, go on. Why?
Well, all those foreign letters were from some seaman's outfit. He'd been trying to locate an old buddy, a sailor named Joe Murphy. Well, Lamago showed me the clipping. Outfit found out that Joe Murphy died of pneumonia in Manila 6 months ago.
Oh, so that's it.
Sure, these old fishing families, they're pretty emotional, that's all. See?
This Joe Murphy wasn't a member of the family, was he?
Oh, no, of course not. Only...
What's the matter?
Well, you won't repeat any of this. He didn't say I shouldn't tell anyone, only he said, don't mention it to the twins.
The twins? Who are they?
I don't know. Part of that big spread-out tribe, I guess. I wouldn't have thought anything of it, but... Well, I was under the impression that one of them was dead, too.
One of the twins was dead?
Yeah. But don't ask me anymore, huh? Funny place, Portuguese Cove.
Tell you, sure. Mrs. Jewell, she'll be downstairs pretty quick. Why worry?
Oh, I'm not worried. You know, you play that very well.
See, very well. I think so, miss.
What's your name?
So sad.
You mean the piece?
No, the name. I have forgotten. What difference is in a name? So sad, they all say, so all right. Since I was a boy. Run errands, do this, do that. So sad. It's a joke, you know.
Oh. But you're not a member of the family, the Lamago family.
Oh, but see, who is not? Only I am not very close. I am the one way out on the limb. Still, I own the boat, the finest boat in the world.
What?
Yes, we all own that boat. Do you have an idea how much she costs? A deep-sea tuna boat?
You own the boat? Is that the one that Captain Lamago...
See. Oh, yes, the whole family owns that. Maybe I only have $10 worth, but is that important? I can cook on the boat, can't I? I can play music. I can watch a man happy. I can watch a man die.
What did you say?
Mr. Valentine, what would you like to hear?
Hello, Angel.
Wait a minute, George. So sad. What was that you just said?
Dinner will be ready pretty quick. What tune? Any music.
What is it, Brooksy?
Well, he said something about...
He talks all the time. It doesn't mean anything. Don't even know what you're saying, do you, Nettie?
Why should I? Who cares what people say? Now, some music. The kind you like, Johnny.
Dinner won't be ready unless you get out there.
Oh, but Johnny, I just want...
Go on, get out of here. Mean, aren't I? Pushing the Nettie around. A mean guy.
Yes, horrible. Johnny?
Yeah. Oh, I know. You're those friends of Mrs. Jewell's. Hello twice.
Same to you.
Thanks. It fits. I'm the twins.
The twins?
That's the trouble with us men in the Lamago family. We disintegrate like Nutty there.
Hey, clear it up, will you?
Why? We're just a backwater bunch of suckers listen to old country music and live the old country way. Radio? What do you think we are, crazy? Give me a wet finger and a sight of Polaris any day. Sure, we can haul in more tuna than anybody in the whole fleet of... All right. I'll get off the soapbox. Want a drink?
No, thanks.
Are you sure you do?
Positive.
Because you're twins?
Forget I ever said it. Forget it.
All right. Maybe you just see double.
Never used to touch this stuff, would you believe it? 6 months. That's how long I've been here. College boy, that's me. Waste your time studying the scientific wiggles of fish.
Waste your time?
Haven't you figured it out? Haven't you seen it? It's standing right there on the porch.
Huh?
Sure. See him there? Pretending he's not listening.
Oh, no, I didn't. The captain.
Watch this. Hey, old ghost.
Easy, Johnny.
Hey, king of the sea. Big shot. Good gray uncle.
Good evening, Miss Brooks. Mr. Valentine.
Hello, Captain.
He can't hear me, see? Rolls off his back.
Mrs. Jewell asked me to say she'd be down directly.
No, thank you.
These people don't understand about little tin god Skipper. Tell them who's the only man left in the Lamego family.
Johnny, for heaven's sake.
Tell them about the rights and duties of a captain at sea. Tell them about the big, strong, upright man who won't let anybody else run anything. Let go of me. The only chance I get to talk back when I've had a few drinks under my belt and one in my hand. So give us a speech, Skipper, on the high moral code of... Tough, isn't it?
Well, you asked for it, Buster.
Well,
Forgive me, Miss Brooks.
now I'll have to mix another drink.
You will not. Not in this house.
Oh, who says so?
I say so. Let's see you argue about it.
Now, wait a minute, Captain.
You're only half my age. Go on, argue. Hit me.
Cut it out, will you, both of you?
I'm not going to touch him. That's all he wants me to do.
You're a sniveling troublemaker like your brother.
I say, Captain, cut it, will you?
Stop, Mrs. Jewell. Stop those things you're saying.
Yes. Yes. Good night, all of you.
Captain.
Good night.
Well, I lit the fuse, didn't I?
Oh, Mr. Valentine.
Yeah, let's change the subject.
Mr. Valentine, I want you to leave the house right now.
What?
Mrs. Jewell,
I had no business getting you here. It was very wrong of me to interfere.
What's all this?
Go on, Mrs. Jewell.
The captain's been upset like this only because someone died.
What?
Died of pneumonia. An old dear friend. A sailor named Joe Murphy in Manila. The captain told me about it.
Mrs. Jewell.
No, be quiet, Johnny. That's why he struck the mailman.
Well, what if I say that wasn't all it was?
What if I say Joe Murphy was no friend of his? It's a lie.
What?
Joe Murphy was just a sailor. On a trip to Mexican waters over a year ago. Just one guy and a crew of 12.
Johnny, please.
I'll bet they never spoke 2 words together, the kind of a Captain Lamego is. Upset because his friend is gone.
Then why was Murphy so important?
Johnny, it's none of their affair. And so Sad has dinner ready.
You've been up in my room, haven't you? That thing you've got there.
Johnny, please, not now.
Give that to me.
No,
Give it.
no, I won't. Oh, George, it's just a book.
Yeah, diary, isn't it?
Sure. His diary.
You mean the captain's?
Mrs. Jewell, I guess you found the same thing I did. There's an entry in the diary he made in the last day.
But whose diary?
Joe Murphy was so important because he was the only sensible witness to a murder by the great tin god, the only man left in the family, Captain Lamego. The diary was Jimmy's, Mr. Valentine.
And who was Jimmy?
A troublemaker like me. A mutineer, no less. That's what Joe Murphy supposedly witnessed. The righteous old swindler was defending himself from a mutineer. Sure. It was on that trip over a year ago that the disintegration of the male ranks of the family started.
Johnny, don't.
That was the excuse the good man used to stay on top. The excuse Captain Lamego used for killing my twin brother.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. Maybe you've already started a checklist of things to take along on your summer vacation. Well, there's a friendly man in your neighborhood who also has a checklist that will help make your vacation the best one you've ever had. You'll find this man at your standard station or independent Chevron gas station. His checklist includes everything your car needs for carefree vacation miles. So before you start out, let him give your car a thorough inspection. That way, there will be less chance of your wasting precious vacation hours because of a dead battery, a broken fan belt, or corroded battery cable. Once you're out on the open road, remember, wherever you go in the West, you're never far from this same type of car-saver service. It's the friendly service you get at all independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. And now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. Portuguese Cove, a little old-fashioned seacoast village, the home of the Lamego family, the anchorage for the one wealth of their life, the tuna boat they all own together. But the skipper of the boat, the self-elected head of the family, is even stranger than the village itself, Captain Lamego. You first heard of him because he had struck a mailman. But now you find that a year ago, he struck one of his own relatives, one of the twins, and killed him.
Self-defense. That's all I know.
Justified?
He was within his rights. He was the captain of a ship at sea.
That doesn't always mean that...
I'm so stupid about these things. And the captain would never let anyone talk about it around the house.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the captain's still doing a lot of thinking about it. At least he tried to get in touch with that witness, that Joe Murphy. Why?
There were some Panamanian boys on the crew. They didn't even speak English. Everybody understood that Jimmy had tried to use them to cause trouble.
Let's see. This mutiny thing that Johnny mentioned?
Well, he doesn't know anything. He was in college at the time, I mean. But Jimmy was a troublemaker. He couldn't stand taking orders from anyone. He couldn't stand not being able to run the family boat himself. That's what everyone understood. And one night he actually tried to attack the captain.
Mrs. Jewell, wasn't there an investigation at the time?
No, it was a hearing of some sort, Mr. Valentine. There's a record of it. I know the captain has some papers down on the boat, but it was kept very quiet. Why would anyone doubt the captain's word? And poor Jimmy had been buried at sea.
Hey, I play music for you. You like to hear some music?
No.
When Jimmy died, did you see what happened so sad?
Oh, see. Oh, it was terrible.
Can't you remember?
Oh, yes, he died. Yes. Why shouldn't I remember? It was at night. I was peeling the potatoes. Always potatoes.
No, look so sad. Just what happened?
Well, everything happened all at once. The captain steps out of his cabin, and then I see Jimmy in the dark waiting for him. He'd been drinking. They all say that. Only maybe Joe Murphy seen him first, because he yells a warning to the captain. This Jimmy have a knife in one hand and a gaff, for the fish, in the other. And he yells something I cannot say out loud, and he swings his arm. Only the captain swings first. And the next thing, there is Jimmy on the deck, with blood where his head hits a cleat. See? Oh, yes, the captain is very strong.
Self-defense. Justifiable accidental death. Only the diary, Mrs. Jewell. The boy's diary that Johnny had. Let's see that last entry. The one that made you try to get me off the case.
And it burns me up the way the old goat picks on me all the time. The way he keeps telling people I cause trouble. The way he keeps dragging such crazy old words as mutiny into the talk whenever I'm around. Boy, he should be in a museum, stuffed, alongside of Captain Bligh. He says there's none of us in the family fit to take over his job. There's a laugh. He's got this boat and he'll never let go. But maybe I'll go up to his cabin one of these nights and tell him we'd get along all right if he'd just quit riding me. Maybe tonight. That's all, George.
Well, now, that doesn't sound exactly like a mutineer thinking of murder. A boy planning an attack with a knife in one hand and a gaff in the other? Brooksy, I think we'd better dig out the real facts of what happened fast, before something else like this happens again.
It's dark, George.
Yeah, easy. Watch you look out for the rope.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's not such a tidy boat, is it, for all the big talk?
No, it's not. Eesh, great.
Run down, rusty at the seams. Here we are.
You see Lamego?
Yeah, he's in there, all right. His cabin. Wait a second.
This is his desk here, George.
Yeah, quiet. The captain's on the bunk, the other cabin. Sound asleep.
It's against the law, probably, what we're doing. George, what...
I expected to ask him, but, well, we're cutting corners. Save the time checking in the city for an official copy.
George, right in front of us. Record of Proceedings, Maritime
Let me
Commission. He's looking at it himself. Why, George?
Come on. Start to work. Federal court jurisdiction concerning the death at sea of James Lamego of Portuguese Cove. Waked him up and just plain asked him.
Can't find anything new, George?
Joe Murphy didn't say much at the hearing. Saw the captain swing at Jimmy, caught sight of the knife in the kid's hand.
Well, that's the same as we already
They'd
know.
had trouble, all right. Captain had already hit Jimmy once, smashed his wrist with a hook the afternoon before.
What?
Yeah, the kid was horsing around. Only the tuna hooks were flying. Captain said somebody might have got his eyes torn out.
Oh.
But the facts? I'm afraid they died of pneumonia in Manila, Brooksy. With Joe Murphy gone...
Well...
Captain, we...
You know, I have a sort of premonition you might be down, Mr. Valentine.
That's so?
Yeah, I left out the things you might want to see.
Oh, Jimmy's death, sure.
After so much bad manners and waving of the emotions up at the house, he was a troublemaker, I guess you could see. Just like you saw his brother Johnny, yes.
You seem to have been a little rough with Jimmy the day before his death.
Oh, that, yes. Too bad. There's no space on the tuna boat for little boy things bossing around. Too dangerous.
Yeah. And besides, everything has to be neat and tidy.
Having to get rid of such a person as Jimmy in self-defense is just one of them things. We mustn't blame him for his weakness. Not everyone can live on the strong moral plane. But a man... that's the general idea of what I want you to...
Yeah, Captain, I'm beginning to understand why you knocked that drink out of Johnny's hand earlier tonight. Why you spout so much, so righteously. Why you slept so heavily in there. Why the family's boat here is in such a mess. To put it mildly, the good gray patriarch can't stand up straight, can he? And, boy, you've had enough to float his...
Get off my ship! Get out of here! I won't listen to you! This is my ship! Get out of here!
Self-defense. But, Johnny, the trouble started a day earlier. Jimmy got his wrist smashed and must have been pretty sore at the old boy. So, Sad, how come you told me Jimmy was carrying a knife and a gaff?
See, that is so. He was.
But with a wrist like that, wouldn't it be a little hard to carry anything? You sure he wasn't just carrying a knife like Joe Murphy said?
See, I think that is right. See.
Which is right?
So, Sad, you want to agree with me, don't you?
But of course. Why not, Mr. Valentine?
No matter what I say, no matter what anybody says.
He's not much of a witness, I'm afraid. But say, he didn't used to say the gaff. Where'd you get that idea, Ned?
Yeah, that's what I mean. The story's being added to.
To make the self-defense even stronger.
But why?
Sometimes self-defense is a way of committing murder, Johnny.
You mean the captain's been coaching Nutty here?
He's justifying himself.
I do not understand.
There was a motive for Jimmy's death, wasn't there, Johnny?
Oh, sure. But the captain thinks nobody's good enough to take over the boat from him.
That boat's worth a lot. The man who runs it gets most of it.
Well, family ownership doesn't mean much when there aren't any men left. Jimmy and I always had different ideas for it, new ideas.
Mr. Valentine, look. Here, look at this.
Yeah, a gun, huh?
revolver. It's loaded and it's brand new. That's why I chased down here looking for you. Nutty found it in the captain's room tonight.
The captain?
Why would he buy it? Nobody else is going to attack him.
Maybe he thinks you are.
What? Oh, look, I've tried to figure this whole thing out. It's driven me crazy. I wrote letters like mad trying to locate Joe Murphy myself. I asked questions, but I couldn't.
The captain.
Here, give me that thing.
No, why should I? I thought for 1 minute he really meant to kill my brother.
What are you doing down there? I told you to get out of here.
Johnny, I said give me that gun.
Get out, you and that yellow belly there.
He can't pull that, Johnny. Take it easy.
Afraid of a fight, every one of you.
Shut up, will you?
Go on, hit me, both of you.
Listen, you see how he does it?
Go on, with my bare fist.
Oh, no, you can't. Not this time.
Now let him have the gun. I'm not afraid of a
I
fight.
told you to shut up a long time ago, Skipper. There won't be any self-defense this time.
Give me that gun back, Nutty.
Sure, Johnny, sure I will. You missed the captain with your first shot. He's down now. Go ahead, shoot him.
What?
Yeah, you heard me. There won't be any self-defense murder. You'll have to do it in cold blood.
Sure,
Try the shoe on the other foot for a while, Sonny. On who goes home. On who's been waking up the sleeping dogs around here.
You trying to be funny?
You're the one who primed So Sad with that gaff story, aren't you, Johnny? Just to make it look like the captain was desperately padding the evidence. You have to be the one. The skipper had seen the official record. He knew about the smashed wrist that made it impossible.
Hey, Mr. Valentine, listen.
Yes, Johnny. And that broken wrist also made it impossible for Jimmy to write in his diary on his last day. I guess a handwriting expert can tell me who wrote that last entry. The entry that made it seem so unlikely that Jimmy could have been really thinking about mutiny.
But everybody knew how Omega treated Jimmy.
Let's just believe what we know. That Jimmy was a troublemaker, a mutineer, who was killed accidentally in self-defense. Only it gave you the bright idea of duplicating the stunt with malice aforethought.
I've been trying to find Joe Murphy to learn the
You
facts
have
of the...
not. You've been making up the facts. Capitalizing on the captain's feelings about a tragedy. You've been doing it for 6 months. Ever since you knew the only witness was dead.
No.
And you had to know, Buster, because you told me you kept writing to locate him. And yet someplace I remember the postman, the mailman himself, saying that Captain Lamega was the only guy around here who ever wrote to strange foreign places.
All right, smart boy. Middle of it.
Give me that. I guess Portuguese Cove won't be having an ambitious new tuna skipper for some time, Johnny.
Jimmy was the same as Johnny. Yes, he was the same.
Skipper, Johnny admitted that he was working for a chance to kid you.
Now you'll keep the boat, Captain. That's what you want.
It's what people say I want. Of course.
Yeah, I know. You won't defend yourself, will you? Too proud. You'll just get secretly drunk and beat your head over the rail and haunt yourself with how you once hit a man.
My fist is so big. It happened so suddenly.
And you won't admit that you really hurt yourself every time you lash out and say there aren't any more men in the family. Trying to smother that conscience of yours. The same oversized conscience Johnny kept preying on. You won't ever admit how lonely you can get being the captain, being responsible for family, or how close you got to wanting to shoot yourself over the guilt that really shouldn't have been yours.
Mr. Valentine, the poor man over there plays excellent dance music. So Sad. It's such a funny name. Wouldn't you two like to dance, Miss Brooks?
Yes, I'd love to. But it's all over now, isn't it, Captain?
Yes, of course. Don't worry. I only wish you knew something about tuna fishing, Mr. Valentine. We could use a man like you in the Lamego family.
Maybe one of these days you'll be going on a picnic with some friends. If they're going to ride in your car, you'll want more than ever to have that new car feeling. You know, fast starts, easy getaway in traffic, and dependable ping-free power on hills. Well, to get and to keep that new car feeling, go on Chevron Supreme gasoline. Most raw gasolines contain impurities that form power-robbing gum. And Chevron Supreme is the gasoline that's super refined to get rid of engine-sticking gum. But you don't have to wait for a picnic trip to get that new car feeling. Try Chevron Supreme tomorrow. Another thing you'll like about this premium quality gasoline is that it gives full mileage in the kind of driving you do. Ask for it at independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard Oil Company of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George with Virginia Gregg as Brooksy. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Francis X. Bushman was heard as Lamego, Walter Burke as Johnny, Elliot Reed as So Sad, Glenn Delano as Mrs. Jewell, and Harry Bartell as the mailman. The music was composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Once again, we got thrown for a loop. Or at least I was. I was actually, until the end, I was feeling like this was just too predictable. And then he turned the whole case around, so that it was, Johnny who was trying to, kill the captain. And we learn at the end that, Captain was pretty well right. He wasn't just being an egotistical or a blowhard. Nobody in the family was fit to take over his job. The writers really set us up. And this twist would be particularly notable in the 1950s, where the idea of progress was such a pivotal thing. So great writing once again from the great staff of Let George Do It. And we'll be back with another great adventure. These last few episodes, really, it feels like we're kind of like riding on a mountain of just fantastic writing. These are some of my favorites of the show, and it just seems to keep getting better and better. I do want to mention one thing for those of you who have the app or have our premium site. We've added another extra. It is an episode of Suspense with Dick Powell. And this is a bit of a darker role for Powell. And so you can listen to that as part of our premium site. But that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sherlock Holmes. And next week, another great episode of Let George Do It. I can hardly wait. Before we do get started, I want to say thank you to Michael, Galea, and also to Heidi for their kind donations and support of the program. If you want to take part in our listener support campaign to help support the show, go to support.greatdetectives.net. We also have a wide variety of different great digital thank you gifts, including full cast audio dramas featuring Perry Mason and Poirot, as well as some high-fidelity old-time radio recordings are available. Go to support.greatdetectives.net. The deadline is Saturday, September 10th, so it's this coming Saturday. Well, a somewhat sad moment that this episode will mark not only our last episode with Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes, but our last episode with Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. And we've been hearing Nigel Bruce, with the exception of a couple of weeks he was sick, longer than anybody other than Bob Bailey and Let George Do It. And he definitely brought a certain something to the role, a warmth, I think, that in my mind made up for any other deficiencies. So for the last time, savor the performance of the great Nigel Bruce, and with Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes in The Adventure of the Iron Maiden.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Now let's drop in on Sherlock Holmes' friend and ours, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. Here you are. Come and sit down.
Thank you.
I trust that you'll join me in a glass of port.
I think I'd better, if only to fortify myself against the horrors of the story you promised us for this evening. The Adventure of the Iron Maiden, you called it.
Well, yes, Mr. Bell. For your last visit of the season, I promised you one of our most macabre adventures. And as soon as you've had a word with our listeners, I'll tell you about the Iron Maiden, or as she was known in Nuremberg, die Eiserne Jungfrau.
Men, on hot summer days, does your hair get out of hand and look dry, wild, and unruly? After a swim, does it feel sticky and stringy, so matted and tangled? Then remember, Kreml Hair Tonic keeps dry, wild, sun-baked hair looking perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day, as if your barber had just combed it. You see, Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This wonderful, natural-looking hairdressing has just enough light oil to keep hair neatly groomed with an attractive, healthy-looking luster. Yet Kreml never leaves the hair looking or feeling greasy or sticky. Kreml always looks and feels so clean on both hair and scalp. It leaves the scalp feeling so cool, refreshed, and alive. So make Kreml a daily must this summer for that handsome, clean-cut look from morning till night. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, I'm sure we're all as anxious as I am to hear the strange story of the Iron Maiden.
Well, it was just before the turn of the century, and Holmes and I had brought to a successful completion a most delicate mission for the reigning family of Saxony. We were spending a day of relaxation in the picturesque old German town of Nuremberg, preparatory to a leisurely trip on the Rhine, and then back to England. As we were getting up from breakfast in our rooms in the hotel, Holmes said,
"Wonderful weather, Watson. And I see you're admiring the excellent view of this quaint old town from our window."
"View? Oh, yes, I suppose the view's all right."
"You don't sound very enthusiastic."
"I'm not. You know what the trouble with Germany is, Holmes?"
"No. What?"
"It's full of Germans." "Huh? Must be the waiter. Come in, come in, come in."
Have I the honor of addressing Mr. Sherlock Holmes of London, England?
This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes, sir. My name is Watson. Dr. Watson.
Ah, yeah, Mr. Holmes, so celebrated colleague.
Oh, that's very good of you.
Permit me that I introduce myself, gentlemen. My name is Ferdinand Langer.
Yes, Mr. Langer?
My friend, the chief porter of this hotel, told me of your arrival, and I have come to beg of you if perhaps you can help me with my so difficult problem.
If it is a matter for the police, Mr. Langer, I fear that I shall be unable to assist you. I have no official standing here. And besides, Dr. Watson and I will be leaving tomorrow.
Ah, the police. To the police I have been, Mr. Holmes. At me they laugh. I am, how do you say, chief keeper of the fünfeckiger Turm.
What?
The five-cornered tower of the castle of Nuremberg. You have heard of it?
Of course. And of its famous torture museum.
Torture museum? That sounds distinctly unpleasant.
For 35 years now I work in the tower. In the last 18 years I am chief keeper. All this time there is never a complaint about me. But now, these last few weeks, the letters have started to come. Each one with more awful threatenings.
Threats, Mr. Langer? Threats of what?
That too old I am getting. That I should resign my position. That if I do not, something terrible will happen. Here is the latest. For yourself, you shall see, Mr. Holmes.
Ah, yes. If my knowledge of German serves me, vague threats, nothing specific, quite a typical letter. From the irregularity of the handwriting, Mr. Langer, the slanting lines, and certain other definite characteristics, I'd say that the writer of this letter is definitely unbalanced.
You mean mad, Holmes?
Perhaps not outwardly so, but most definitely abnormal. And from the fact that these threats are evidently designed to make you resign your position, Mr. Langer, I deduce that the author of them must be connected in some way with the affairs of the tower. Have you any suspicions?
This I do not like to say, Mr. Holmes. But there is a young man, my assistant, Heinrich Schiller, who but waits to step into my shoes. He even presumes to pay court to my daughter Elsa.
Oh, well, we're only young once, Mr. Langer.
Oh, my daughter, I have better things in mind than this insolent young man.
Oh, really?
So, you two, Mr. Holmes, think Heinrich wrote these letters? You think I should have him arrested or dismissed?
I think you'll require more evidence than a mere guess, Dr. Langer.
But how shall I get it?
Well, perhaps we might combine business with pleasure. What do you say, Watson? Suppose we have Mr. Langer show us through Nuremberg's most famous sight, the Five-Cornered Tower.
Here we are, gentlemen. If you will just follow me through this gate here. This way, gentlemen.
Just a moment, my man. Are you in charge here?
Yes, madam.
Then why are these people being admitted to the tower, while my friend Miss Simpson and I are kept standing about and debarred from entrance?
Oh, do please be careful, Amelia. It isn't as though we were home.
Nonsense. I insist upon knowing.
I am sorry, madam, but the tower is not open for visitors until 11 each morning, as you will find if your Baedeker you will consult. And it is now but 10 o'clock.
Then why are these two men being admitted?
Because...
No excuses. I'm English, my man. And in England, we believe in fair play. No favoritism.
I'm sure, Mr. Langer, that you have no objections to showing these two charming ladies through the tower with us.
Oh, of course, Mr. Holmes, if you say so.
I do indeed.
Thank you very much, sir. Just what I should expect from a fellow Britisher.
A pleasure. After you, ladies. Lead the way, Mr. Langer.
At this point, in the very center of the castle we are. Cut from out of the solid rock, built by the prisoners from 1253 till 60 years later.
1253? Victoria, make a note of that.
What in heaven's name is that black pit yawning in the center over there?
The Tiefer Brunnen, the deep well. Lean over and listen while I drop a stone.
Oh, it must be almost bottomless.
About 340 feet, I'd say.
You have been here before, Mr. Holmes?
No, I merely counted the interval from the time you dropped the stone until the splash.
Oh, Amelia, down that corridor, look. That gigantic shadow. It's getting nearer.
Oh, no. Control yourself, madam. It's merely somebody approaching with a torch.
Good morning, Herr Langer. I did not know you were showing a party through so early.
That is Heinrich, Mr. Holmes. Follow with us, Heinrich.
Yes, sir.
Here are the dungeon cells, where were kept the prisoners.
Yes, most insanitary, I call it. Nothing but damp stone.
Barbaric. Just what I should expect of foreigners.
And here, the torture chamber.
What are all those strange objects? Oh, at least there's a couch for the poor prisoners.
Hardly that, I fear. That wheel-like object at the head of it proclaims its true purpose.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes. This was the rack. On it they would tie the victim, and with the wheel they would stretch and stretch and stretch his limbs until his bones cracked.
Oh, how awful. Come, Victoria. No weakness.
Pleasant idea, I must say. What's that iron collar thing up there?
That, Doctor, fits into that larger iron frame which over there you may see. Around the neck of a prisoner, it was snapped and locked. so that the unfortunate man neither sit nor lie down nor sleep could.
Regular chamber of horrors.
And there is the boot, the iron frame in which a prisoner's leg was slowly crushed, and the braziers for melting lead, and heating tongs and pincers. They are all here.
And that large iron affair beneath the embrasure, that, Mr. Langer, I assume to be the famous Iron Maiden.
The Iron Maiden? It looks just like a statue.
Yes, I can't say that I consider it a very beautiful one.
It is a statue, madam, but a hollow one. And for good reason.
I think I'd rather not hear about it. Victoria, keep a stiff upper lip.
The two halves of the statue swing open, and within are many iron spikes, as in a moment you will see. Into it was placed the victim, and slowly the door upon him was closed. The maiden's kiss, the executioners called it.
Imaginative bunch of fellows they must have been.
A most graphic description, Mr. Langer.
Thank you. Perhaps one of the ladies would like to open the statue and see within?
Oh, no, not I. Nonsense, Victoria. The ghosts of prisoners who've been dead for 500 years can't hurt you. Here, Mr. Guide. I'll open it.
Good. You lift this bar here, so, and then pull open with this handle.
It works rather stiffly. There, now it's opening.
Good heavens!
Oh, there's something inside.
The body of a woman. No, don't touch her.
Mr. Holmes, the letters. Something horrible they spoke of. Now it has happened.
Yes, it's unbelievable.
Control yourself, Victoria.
Schiller, take these two ladies out into the air. Yes, sir.
Now,
yes.
chin up, my dear. Chin up. Lean on me if you like, but chin up.
Oh, I must say, Holmes, that's about as nasty a sight as I've ever seen.
Quite so, Watson. Mr. Langer, do you recognize this woman?
Never saw her before.
What time yesterday did the last visitors go through?
The museum is closed from 6 o'clock on, Mr. Holmes.
Then the body of this unfortunate young woman must have been placed here between that time last night and the present moment.
Yeah, but how I cannot understand. Now, at last, to me, the police will have to listen.
Undoubtedly. And you'd best send for them at once. Dr. Watson and I will be leaving Nuremberg tomorrow morning, and the authorities will no doubt wish to take our statements.
Immediately, I shall send for them.
We shall wait here for their arrival.
Oh, this scandal. It will wreck the museum. Mr. Holmes, you have seen Heinrich. Tell me, could he so terrible a thing have done?
That, Mr. Langer, is a question we'd best leave to the police.
I fetch them at once.
A curious problem, Watson. The solution is, of course, obvious to you.
Solution? This murder, you mean?
Murder? There's been no murder, Watson.
The devil do you mean, Holmes? With the cops literally staring us in the face from inside that revolting iron statue.
If you will examine the corpse for a moment, my dear Watson, you'll notice that it exhibits no signs whatsoever of rigor.
By Jove, you're right. But what on earth does it mean?
Simply that this poor woman was dead long before her body was put into the Iron Maiden. I've no doubt that the police will quickly be able to establish that a corpse is missing from the morgue or one of the local hospitals.
But, Holmes, what can be the purpose of so fiendish and so horrible a plot? I hardly expect you to tell me it's merely a practical joke.
Far from it. Madness lay at the bottom of those letters that Langer showed us, and madness placed this body within the statue. But the difficulty, Watson, will be to reveal the madman behind these acts.
In just a moment, we'll rejoin Sherlock Holmes as he endeavors to solve the mystery of the Iron Maiden. Men, on hot, sticky summer days, your hair needs extra special care. And when you buy a hair tonic, why not buy one that does lots more than just keep hair looking handsome? Why not get your money's worth and buy Kreml hair tonic? No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly groomed and attractive looking. Kreml gives hair such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. It keeps the hair perfectly groomed throughout the hottest, stickiest day. It never looks or feels greasy or sticky. In addition, Kreml is simply great to lubricate a dry scalp. At the same time, it removes itchy, loose dandruff and leaves the scalp feeling so clean, refreshed, and alive. No wonder Kreml is preferred among America's most prosperous men. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drug counter. Ask for an application at your barber shop. Use this highly specialized hair tonic daily. for better groomed hair and more hygienic scalp. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson, what did Sherlock Holmes do to uncover the madman behind the strange deed in the five-cornered tower of Nuremberg?
Well, by the time that the police had finished with us, it was late in the afternoon. Considerably shaken by the events of the day, we returned to our hotel, where the two ladies who had spent so grim a morning with us were also stopping. After a tub and a whiskey and soda, I don't know which was more welcome, I came back into our room to find Holmes in conversation with young Heinrich Schiller.
Anything I can do, Mr. Holmes, I will. I know that the police suspect me of these letters, and how can I prove that I did not write them? Elsa's father shows clearly that he thinks it is I behind all this horror.
If you will carry out my instructions, Mr. Schiller, I think we may succeed in clearing up this matter this evening.
Heaven bless you, Mr. Holmes. If only you can remove the shadow that hangs over Elsa and myself.
Yes. Now, goodbye. Until later.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye. That young fellow looks as though he was at his wit's end.
If the police, the father of the girl you loved, and even the girl herself suspected you of being an anonymous letter writer with a latent streak of insanity, I'd greatly doubt that even you could maintain your usual poise.
Possibly. But I wouldn't write anonymous letters or put corpses in iron maidens.
I trust not.
Well, I'm ready to do good justice to a great dinner, and then a good night's sleep before we start our trip down the Rhine tomorrow.
I hope that the dinner will be good, but I'm sorry to tell you that your chances of a good night's sleep look extremely poor.
Oh? Why?
Because by 10 o'clock this evening, you and I must be securely hidden in the torture room of the castle.
Oh, really?
Quite. And before we dine, I'd be obliged if you would unpack your service revolver and make certain that it's loaded. We may well be depending upon you before the night is out.
Well, just a moment. Where are you off to?
I'm going downstairs to see Miss Atterbury. I'll meet you in the dining room.
That grim-faced old trout? Well, don't tell me you're going to ask her and that mousy little companion of hers to dine with us.
Not at all, my dear fellow. I want Miss Atterbury's assistance in baiting a trap. So there, Miss Atterbury, you have a frank statement of my problem.
I understand, Mr. Holmes.
The difficulty, you see, is that although the man in question is undoubtedly as mad as a hatter, there's no way in the world by which I can prove it. And what I fear is that, having begun with threatening letters and graduated to stolen bodies, his mania may at any time break out in an even more violent form.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, you don't mean murder? Don't be idiotic, Victoria. Of course, Mr. Holmes means murder. Oh.
If you are willing to take the risk, Miss Atterbury, it is my belief that a sudden and violent shock may serve to bring his madness into the open. But I'll not disguise from you the fact that, although Dr. Watson and I will take every precaution, you may still be running a considerable personal risk.
Don't do it, Amelia. This is no concern of yours. Think what the dear vicar would say.
The vicar would probably faint. I, however, am made of sterner stuff. Mr. Holmes, I shall be glad to assist you to the best of my ability.
Capital. Then I shall see you at about 11 o'clock tonight, Miss Atterbury. Although you will not see us.
Only 11 o'clock, Holmes. I feel as though we'd been here most of the night. Cold dampness of this infernal torture chamber is like a breath from a tomb.
I only hope, Watson, that my estimate of our man's psychology has been accurate. I'd hate to think that I'd put Miss Atterbury into jeopardy unnecessarily.
Well, she looked to me the sort of female who could take care of herself if she were charged by a mad elephant.
Nothing wrong with her courage, though. There are not many women who would... Listen. You hear that, Watson?
Yes. I hear them.
Now you understand why I point the hour of 11. The moon has risen, and enough of her light comes through that narrow embrasure so that you can shoot straight if the need arises.
I have my revolver ready, Holmes.
Right this way.
Be in readiness for anything, Watson. Once they're in this room, we shan't be able to make the slightest sound.
Right you are, right you are.
You are sure, Miss Atterbury, that no one knows about this visit?
No. I made a point of telling nobody.
Good. Only because you have shown such great interest and been so understanding would I, through the tower, show you at night when the museum is closed.
It's too good of you, my dear Mr. Langer. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But I did so want to see it by moonlight. When I get back to England, I know I shall be the envy of all my friends.
It's because the proper spirit you show to the memories of the old days that I bring you here now. It is best at night. Those who once screamed aloud in this room, almost you imagine that in the moonlight you can see them and hear them.
Oh, really, Mr. Langer, you have the most remarkable ability for summoning up the ghosts of the past. When I think of what this room must have known, it makes the cold shivers run down my spine.
It is because you have the imagination that you so fear. That is but right and proper.
I was so disappointed today when you were unable to complete your description of all these fascinating devices.
There is no reason why now you should not them all be seen.
That pair of objects hanging on the wall, there, they look almost like gloves hanging at the end of those iron chains.
They are gloves, but of a variety most strange. Come to the wall here. To you I show them once. See, it is most ingenious. So, the iron gloves open, and into them were the hands of the prisoner put.
May I try them? It would all make it seem so real.
But why not? Here, your hands you place inside.
Like this?
Yeah. And then.
Oh, you've closed them?
Yeah.
Most interesting, but it's rather uncomfortable standing here against the wall with my hands chained over my head. So, if you don't mind...
But that is only half of it. All you have not yet seen. I pull back this lever so, and slowly the stones of the floor under your feet move away. Until you are hanging above a pit that goes down into the deepest depths of the castle. And there you shall hang. Or shall hear you until ready I am to pull the lever that the chains will release, and down you will go.
Don't touch that lever. He's reaching for it. Quick, Watson.
Good work, Watson. Just in time.
Is everything all right, Mr. Holmes? I watched the corridor as you told me.
Quite all right, Schiller. Just reverse that infernal device and let's release Miss Atterbury.
Oh, thank you so much.
Are you all right, Miss Atterbury?
Quite. Although it was not an experience I should care to repeat.
I can well believe that. But there's nothing wrong with your courage, madam.
I believe I'd like a cup of tea.
Well, we'd better get this fellow to the hospital, Holmes. I got him through the shoulder. Nothing fatal, but he's losing a lot of blood.
Well, I will carry him, Mr. Holmes. I will take him to the hospital.
Go ahead, Miss Atterbury.
Oh, thank
I'll
you.
hold the torch.
I realize, Holmes, that the man was mad. That a trap you set finally brought his madness out into the open, but...
It was the only way, Watson. A long shot, but a successful one.
I can't understand what Langer was attempting to gain.
I imagine, Watson, that his mind had become twisted by his many years among his gruesome exhibits of the past. And his hatred of young Schiller, both as a prospective son-in-law and as a successor to his own position, must have hatched this mad plot.
Well, it all ended well due to your foresight, Holmes, and to your pluck, Miss Atterbury. Very good show, I must say.
It was a pleasure. Tell me, Dr. Watson, I believe that Mr. Holmes said that you and he are leaving tomorrow morning for a trip down the Rhine before your return to England. You're not by any chance going aboard the steamer Earl Kearney, are you?
Yes, we are.
Oh, how very fortunate. Miss Simpson and I are going on the same boat. So we shall all be shipmates for a delightful week.
Oh, yes. Delightful.
Are you a bachelor, Dr. Watson?
A bachelor? Yes, I am.
The Rhine scenery, they say, is most romantic.
Yes, so I've heard. Just a moment, Holmes.
Yes, Watson?
My shoelaces come undone. You go on ahead, Miss Atterbury. We'll catch up with you in a minute.
All right. Don't be long.
I say, Holmes, you take her back to the hotel. I got something else to do.
Going to change our tickets, Watson?
Huh? How'd you know?
I thought you might be thinking of giving up the Rhine trip and getting out of Germany by the fastest train.
A brilliant deduction, Holmes.
Elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary.
Ladies, when you want your hair to look its radiant best for an important date, just do this the night before. Give your hair a 10-minute glamour bath with Kreml shampoo.
I certainly agree with that, Mr. Bell. And you know, Kreml shampoo is the same shampoo used by those famous beauties, the Powers models.
Kreml shampoo has been especially developed to glamour bathe each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural, glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays that way for days.
And please bear in mind that Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It's not a cream shampoo. It's not a drying detergent. Not a harsh soap. It's entirely different.
Yes, Kreml shampoo uncovers all the natural highlights that lie concealed in every woman's hair. Yet it never dries the hair. In fact, Kreml shampoo has a built-in oil base which helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle. It removes dandruff flakes the first time you use it.
Kreml shampoo whips up a luxuriant, active foam, even in the hardest water. It rinses out so easily and never leaves any dull, soapy film.
So, ladies, why not buy a bottle of Kreml shampoo at any drug counter and glamour bathe your hair to a vision of shining beauty, like the lovely $1 Million Powers models. Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Well, Dr. Watson, I'm afraid that this will be our last visit for a while.
Yes, I'm afraid so, Mr. Bell, but it's been a pleasure to be with you and our listeners for so many weeks. And I hope you've enjoyed hearing my stories of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes as much as I have telling them.
I think I speak for all of us when I say that we certainly have.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Bell.
You know, Dr. Watson, beginning 1 week from today, Kreml will present a new series of programs featuring Eddie Duchin, to be heard Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons over most of these ABC stations. Consult your local newspaper for the time.
I'm sure that they'll be very fine programs, and before saying goodbye for the summer on behalf of Tom Conway and myself, I'd like to thank all of those whose assistance has made our weekly visits possible. Claire Wiedener of the American Broadcasting Company, Carl Hefferman, our engineer, Bill Verdier and Vic Livoti, who so capably furnished our sound effects, Shirley Wilson, our charming script girl, Alex Steinert, who composed and conducted the music, Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher, Edith Miser, and Leonard Lee, who wrote the dramatizations, and last but not least, our producer and our director, Tom McKnight.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, The Final Problem. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of Universal International Pictures. Tom Conway through the courtesy of Eagle Lion Pictures. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo and wishing you a happy and prosperous summer. is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, you just know that a mystery series with Sherlock Holmes has to end, at least the dramatic part, on that elementary my dear Watson line. A somewhat creepy case, but one of those where there was no actual murder committed. But overall, pretty decent conclusion for Nigel Bruce and Tom Conway. Bruce actually continued to have a career in Hollywood, making films and appearing on television, until he took ill in late 1953. And Basil Rathbone was actually working to bring Sherlock Holmes to the stage, but Bruce was unavailable due to his illness, and he passed away during the rehearsals. But the memory of him as Dr. Watson still endures to this day. Well, that will do it for this week and for this series of Sherlock Holmes. Next week, we'll be back with another episode of Sherlock Holmes, but it will be on a new network, with a new sponsor, with new stars, and recorded from a new city. So we'll have a lot to talk about next week. And join us tomorrow for yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Well, this is going to be the last program where we're going to actively promote our listener support campaign. The deadline is tomorrow, September 10th, for PayPal donations, or if you would rather mail in a check or money order, email me at box13@greatdetectives.net and I'll provide that. Appreciate everyone who has contributed so far. This has been a pretty successful effort, and I think that we'll definitely be reducing the number of days that we do ads on, though we don't know what the final tally will be. We'll probably have more on that in a couple of weeks. I do want to say a special thank you to two more people who donated in support of the show. Special thanks to Gerald. And also to Mary, who writes in, listening to old-time radio shows has become my nightly entertainment. I began with your Dragnet show, and now add in my favorite detective shows, Sherlock Holmes and Johnny Dollar. It has been fun listening to you progress from hesitant neophyte to silver-tongued devil. Can't wait to hear what you have in store for us in the future. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your kind comments and for your support. And since your favorite is Johnny Dollar, it's time for today's episode, the Youngstown Credit Group Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
This is Sergeant Bacon. I'm calling for Police Chief Allen.
Oh, yes, Sergeant. How are things going?
Good and bad, you might say. We're at the hospital. George Enfield just died of his injuries, but it looks like the other man, Charlie Watson, is going to pull through.
Has he been questioned yet?
No, but the docs say he can be in an hour or so. That's what I'm phoning about. Chief Allen says you can come over if you want to get in on it.
Good. I'll see you in about 20 minutes. Oh, Sergeant, did you get the new tally on the robbery?
No, I didn't know there was a new one.
It stands at 48,000 now.
And murder, too. I guess this one will rip Youngstown to pieces, all right.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Youngstown Credit Group matter. Expense account item 1, $45.60, airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Youngstown, Ohio, where Sergeant Biggin added the following details to what I had already learned.
The Youngstown Credit Group is a savings and loan set up for the employees out at Federal Mills. About 2 years ago, they set up this service to cash the men's paychecks. Enfield and Watson have been going right out to the plant every payday at noon. Charge a small fee for the service.
The same two men every week with that kind of money?
That's right. And this morning, somebody finally caught up with them. Knew the route they took and the time. Evidently stopped their car some way, got into it, relieved them of the money, and then pushed them out while they were making their getaway. Enfield and Watson are a mess. That's all we've got except an abandoned sedan that might fit in someplace.
It was a couple of hours later when I was told that one of the victims, George Enfield, had died as a result of being thrown from the speeding car. I went to the hospital and there met Chief Edward J. Allen, a man I'd read about and admired as the police officer who had led the fight that finally forced Detroit's Purple Gang out of Youngstown. I was surprised at his being on hand so early in a case and said so.
Because I haven't gotten used to not being a sergeant, I guess. I answer a call with the boys anytime I can. We won't be able to press Watson too far. He'll be in pretty bad shape from the sedatives.
Yeah. Does he know about his partner being dead?
Not yet. And we'd better hold it back. Here. Oh, Watson. Feel like talking about what happened?
Sure. I'll try.
Thanks. This is Mr. Dollar. He's an insurance investigator.
Yeah, that's a rough going, Watson.
I'm Chief Allen.
Yes, sir.
You tell us when you want us to leave, Watson, and we will. But we want to get on this as fast as we can, and the more you can tell us now, the better it'll be.
I will. They stopped us just after we crossed Spring Common Bridge.
Were they waiting, or did they follow you from town?
Followed us. They started to pass us and forced us off the road.
You didn't suspect that you were being followed?
I didn't think about it.
How many men were there?
4. They had white handkerchiefs over their faces.
Well, can you give us any kind of a description?
I couldn't swear to anything.
What about clothes? Can you remember if they wore overcoats, hats?
Hard to remember. They all seem to look alike now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wore hats, all of them, and overcoats.
Were they armed?
Yes, sir. All of them were armed.
Well, what can you give us on the type of weapons?
I don't know very much about guns.
Enough to know if they were automatics or cylinder type?
The man that took me had an automatic. I remember that.
Well, would you say it was a large gun or a small one?
I don't know how to answer it. Didn't look either way.
Was it nickel-plated or blue steel?
It was dark, I think. Blue steel.
How tall are you, Watson?
5'9.5".
Was this man as tall as you?
A little taller, sir.
Is he here?
No. Thinner, I'd say. I weigh 170.
Yeah, you're doing fine, Watson. Just a few more questions. Did this man say anything to you?
Just get out. He held the gun on me and said, get out. At the same time, another one was taking Enfield out.
Enfield was driving?
Yes, sir. It was his car.
That was a blue 1948 Plymouth sedan, huh?
Yes, sir. They made us get in the back seat on the floor, kneeling with our heads down.
Where did you have the money, Watson?
In the trunk.
Locked in the trunk?
Yes, sir. In a briefcase.
They must have known that.
No. How did they operate then, Watson?
Well, they made us stay on the floor. They left their car and got in Enfield's, all of them. Then later, maybe 15 minutes, they pushed me out, and that's all I remember.
They say anything?
Just a word or two to keep us on the floor.
Well, Watson, see if you can help us with this. Somebody knew an awful lot about the way you and Enfield operated, even to the point of knowing they'd have to take the car because you carried the money in the trunk. Who would have known all that?
Quite a few, sir. I think I would have recognized them.
They wouldn't have to be there, Watson.
Somebody who could have given the information to the 4 men.
Well, I can't think of anybody who'd do that, sir.
Well, give us the names of as many as you can remember right now. That bunch had to get the information from somebody.
The names he listed included those of men in the Youngstown Credit Group, a man or two at Federal Mills, and from the bank where they drew the money each week, 3 employees who would have known the time they left and that they locked the money in the trunk of the car. There were 12 all told, but instead of our following them up, some officers were assigned to check their movements for anything that might lead us someplace. An alarm on the Plymouth sedan and the description of the man with the glasses was broadcast, and while Chief Allen waited for results at headquarters, I went out to the east side to talk with Enfield's widow.
All I can think is he's gone, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I don't know how to tell the kids that he's gone.
Do you have anybody to help you, Mrs. Enfield?
Nobody. I don't want anybody. Maybe let alone. Nothing has ever been good. Nothing. It's
strafed and did without and never got ahead, and now it ends like this. I don't know what I'm going to do. Why do you have to bother me?
Because somebody who knew a lot about your husband, or Watson, is to blame for all this.
I don't hardly know what you're saying to me. I just keep thinking, I've got to tell the kids.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Enfield. I hoped you could help us find the man who did this thing.
How could I help anybody?
By telling me if there was some acquaintance of your husband's you think might have known his routine when he went to Federal Mills. Somebody who could have taken advantage of what he knew.
He wouldn't talk about that. Why should he?
Who are some of his friends, Mrs. Enfield?
I didn't know many of his friends. He never told me much about what he did. Never brought them here.
Where would he have met them, then?
Downtown, someplace. I'm not sure.
It could be important.
He used to bowl, but I never went with him. I couldn't say where. Why do you make me talk about things he did? He won't do them no more. Not right you're bothering me like this. Not now. Not so soon like this. Leave me alone.
All right, Mrs. Enfield. Believe me, I wouldn't have come if it weren't so important to learn as much as we can, as quickly as we can. The importance of speed, of course, was based upon the fact that the $48,000 to have been used to cash paychecks was in small, untraceable denominations. What we were afraid of was that the 400 men would split the money, separate as quickly as possible, and leave the area. It was 5:30 p.m. by the time I reported back to Chief Allen. The search for the Plymouth by then was statewide, but nothing had developed. At 7:15, something did. The owner of a farm a few miles from town called in a tip. A few minutes later, we pulled up in front of his house.
Didn't think anything about it till I got the paper this evening. I read how the police were looking for a Plymouth sedan. Said my wife, wonder if that could be the one. She said, don't seem likely, but I made up my mind to call you anyway.
Well, I'm glad you did, Mr. Long.
Well, there's a Plymouth like that down there at the edge of my land.
It's there now?
Well, it was at nightfall, and what's more, I was fixing some drift fence down that way when it drove in. I remember now, there was 4 men got out of it.
Now, what time was that?
About noon.
Did you get a good look at these men?
I didn't pay much attention till another car come and turned around. Then they all got into that one and drove off.
Were they carrying anything? A briefcase?
Oh, I didn't notice.
Now, which way did they go?
Well, toward the city, same way both cars come from.
Now, what kind of a car was it?
Well, these blame new models all look the same to me. I couldn't say. It was blue, though.
What about the men? Is there a chance you'd recognize any of them?
Well, I couldn't be sure. I don't pay much attention to people.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Long. We'll go take a look at that Plymouth.
Just drive down the end of my fence there. You'll see a turnoff. It's not a real road, sort of a lover's lane like.
It's the car, all right, Dollar.
Yeah, they dumped it in a hurry, didn't they? Yeah. Key's still in the trunk lock. We're up against a really well-planned thing here, aren't we?
They're sure ahead of us so far.
Another car and a fifth man to figure now. You think they went back to town?
Would you have planned it that way?
Maybe. If I had, I would have thrown you a curve. You and all the deputies and the state police would be looking for a group of 4 making a getaway.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'd be back in town, not part of a group anymore, but anybody on the street.
Yeah. With a drawer full of unmarked bills someplace. Well, we'll get the sedan in and see if it'll give us anything.
I can drive it if you want without messing up too many prints.
Yeah, that would save some time. Hey, come here.
What have you got?
Now look at the stain on the floor there.
Could that be blood?
It's hard to tell with just a flash. Let's get this thing in and put somebody to work on it.
We learned that night that the stain on the rear floor of the sedan was blood, but I didn't get its full meaning until the next morning when I showed up at police headquarters.
Good morning, Mr. Dollar.
Hi, Sergeant. Chief in?
He's been here since dawn. Go on in.
Thanks.
Oh, there you are. Just called your hotel.
I take it I'm late for something. Did you sew this thing up after I got out of your way?
Oh, hardly. I asked him to speed up the autopsy on Enfield last night, and it turns out that he was beaten before he was thrown out of that car.
Oh?
Yeah, with all the rest of the damage to his head, it was easy to miss. But the fatal wounds were caused by a blunt instrument, probably a length of pipe.
And he must have known somebody in the group.
Sure he did.
We've got a downright premeditated murder on our hands.
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. One of the most informative and forceful campaigns for freedom is being scheduled by the Voice of America during the last week of December. Special dramatic programs, news roundups, and musical programs will be beamed around the world by this great organization. You are urgently requested to write to your friends overseas and tell them not to miss the Voice of America's special year-end overseas program. Now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Morning, Watson.
Morning, sir.
How's it going today, Watson? Better?
Yeah, I think so. You caught those guys yet?
Not yet. Have you been told that George Enfield is dead?
No. He died?
They killed him, Watson. They beat him before they pushed him out of the car.
The reason must have been because he knew one of the men, or maybe more than one. Now, I know at a time like that, things get a little out of focus. Most level-headed man in the world isn't likely to think quite straight. But we want to go over what happened with you again.
Sure, but I don't see how it could have been anything like that.
It almost has to be, Watson. They didn't kill you, so why would we kill him if they didn't have a darn good reason to?
I don't know.
Tell me, what did Enfield say while this stick-up was going on?
I don't think he said anything. I didn't hear anything he said anyway. Not any names, if that's what you mean.
Well, that's what I want you to be as clear about as you can.
Oh, I'm sure I didn't hear anything. I was talking so myself. Maybe he could have said something I didn't hear.
While you were still in the front seat?
Yes, sir. I was scared stiff, and I kept telling this guy not to shoot me. That's all I was thinking of. I was scared stiff, and I couldn't help it. All I remember is him sitting with his hands still on the wheel and those men with masks on coming for us.
When you were both on the floor of the back seat, Watson, did he say anything then?
No, sir.
What about you?
I was begging for my life, and I'm not ashamed to say so.
Well, you don't have to be.
I was saying I don't care about the money and to let me out of there. I thought they were going to kill us then, because I couldn't think of any other reason why they should take us with them.
And Enfield said nothing?
No, I'm sure he didn't. I remember now, one of the men even said something. He said, "What's the matter with you? Why aren't you begging like your buddy?" And George still didn't say anything.
Did this man call him by name?
I don't think so. No, he didn't.
Dollar? Yeah, I think we've stayed long enough. Thanks very much, Watson.
Sure.
You may have helped us quite a lot. You get some rest now. We'll see you later.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
Well, I guess the same thing occurred to you. That Enfield might have set the whole thing up, and they got rid of him because he was the only link between them and the job.
Well, I'll give Watson a half hour's rest and see if I can find out how Enfield was acting before they were stopped. Will you go out and check the widow again?
Sure. Hello, Mrs. Enfield.
What do you want?
Well, we've learned some new things about your husband's death, and I wanted to tell you about them.
What kind of thing?
May I come in for a minute?
For a minute? I got work to do.
Thanks, Mrs. Enfield.
What kind of things did you find out about George?
That he didn't die because he was pushed out of the car.
How was he then?
He died as a result of a beating. The men who stole the money killed him for one reason or another.
I don't see any difference. He's gone, and it don't change things how it happened. Is that all you came to tell me?
Mrs. Enfield, I don't understand you. Don't you want to help us find the men who killed him?
It's over with. Now I'm going to try and forget.
No, I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. I can tell you this, Mrs. Enfield. The police think it's possible that your husband was involved in that robbery.
Why do they?
I told you yesterday, those men knew so much about the habits of your husband and Watson that they must have learned from one of them or from somebody very close to either one. And Watson is pretty much cleared in their books.
I don't know.
You don't know what?
I'm all mixed up. I knew something was wrong. I even thought about what you just said. But I tried not to. I didn't want it to be true.
If it's true, it'll come out. You've got to realize that, Mrs. Enfield.
My sister from Cleveland came and got the kids. She can keep the truth from them until I can move out of here. They think he was a hero. And they're all I care about. Nothing can hurt me any more than he did.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Enfield.
I'll show you what kind of a man he was. This is what I found yesterday before you came. A railroad ticket. He was going to leave us. California.
Why didn't you tell me yesterday?
I didn't want anybody to know. I was ashamed. The kids, mostly. I didn't want them ever to find out. He was going to leave us with no money. With bills we couldn't pay. And that's all. That's what he thought of us.
Was he involved in the robbery, Mrs. Enfield?
I don't know. Something was going on. For the past 2 weeks, you could tell there was something. He was out every night. He'd say it was at the High Point bowling alleys, but one night I was sick and I phoned there. He hadn't been there for 3 nights.
Do you have any idea who he'd been seeing?
No, but one night he talked on the phone to somebody named Carl. I was listening, and he said he'd meet this Carl at the High Point. That's all I know.
Nothing more definite about the robbery?
No. Except why would he buy a railroad ticket to California unless he was going to run away?
Carl at the High Point. Thanks, Mrs. Enfield. We'll see if we can find him. Comparing notes with Chief Allen made it look all the more like we were on the right track. Watson had told him that Enfield's attitude when they left the bank could have meant that he was under some kind of strain. Surprisingly, the name Carl fit in almost immediately. Carl Huffman, a punk with an unimportant police record, had been seen meeting Enfield in the High Point alleys. He was easily located and brought in for questioning.
You remember me, Huffman. What are you doing still in town?
No law says I can't be here.
Who told you to say that?
Nobody has to tell me to say something that's true.
Remember the last time you were in here?
No.
Well, I do. You were playing it big then, too. You were counting on some friends from Detroit who didn't come through. Whose gang was that, Huffman?
I don't remember.
Yes, you do. You thought it was the strongest organization in this part of the country. You thought hiding behind them you couldn't be picked up. You had the idea that just because you were on the fringe of organized crime, nobody could hurt you. But you got hurt, didn't you? A year on the last rap.
So I got a year. That settles it.
If you had any brains, Huffman, you wouldn't be where you are now. You'd be a decent citizen. But here you are. You just can't get along in the world like everybody else. All right, let's talk about George Enfield.
What about him?
Do you want to take the rap for his murder? I can give it to you.
What are you handing me? What murder?
All we need is the fact that he was with you night before last. We've got that.
It's a lie.
I'll believe our witness under oath before I believe you.
It's a lie. What witness?
Ben Hochek at the High Point. He says you were there the other night.
Well, sure I was. There's no law against that either.
Hochek says you've been meeting Enfield there and leaving with him. He says you've been doing that for a couple of weeks.
Well, that don't mean anything.
You ought to play it smart, Huffman. He's got a lot on you.
How can he? I didn't do nothing.
You were seeing Enfield. Even his wife knew that. She knew he was planning to leave town, too.
I can't help that.
You were seeing him so you could set up that robbery, isn't that right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's get back to that other thing you don't know about. Where were you the other morning between 11 and noon?
I've already told you. I slept late.
Your hotel clerk says he saw you leave at about 10:30.
Well, he must have been mistaken.
Do you want to take this rap alone?
What rap? You got nothing on me.
We've got enough to make a charge stick.
You can't have. I didn't do nothing.
I'll show you what we've got.
You're in a bad way, Huffman. He didn't tell you yet about the witness.
How can there be a witness?
A farmer out where you dumped the Plymouth. He saw you drive it in. He watched you open the trunk and take the briefcase out. He's on his way in now.
All right. Did you ever see this before, Huffman?
No. I don't even know what it is.
Don't know what it is. What does it look like?
It's a piece of pipe we found in a ditch along the highway out past Federal Mills.
About a half mile beyond where you tossed Enfield out of the car.
I tell you, I don't know what you're talking about.
Look at it close, Huffman. You see these marks up here? They're small, but they're bloodstains.
It don't mean anything to me.
It did to Enfield.
That's what killed him.
I don't know anything about it. I never saw it before.
And how come it's got your prints on it?
That's a lie. I never touched it. I wasn't even... Oh, what's he?
That's right. Why take it all yourself?
Look, I didn't know there was going to be any killing. If I had, I wouldn't have got mixed up in it.
Who were the rest of them?
Bill Lewick and Vern Clark. But it was Enfield's idea. He started it.
There are 2 more men, aren't there?
Now, look, what kind of a break do I get for giving you all this?
You can't make a deal with me, Huffman. You know that. Any break will have to come from the district attorney. Who are the other 2 men?
Thayer brothers.
Thayer brothers?
Yeah.
When did they come back to town?
A couple of weeks ago.
They've been laying mighty low. We haven't heard about it.
Well, they wanted it kept quiet. They came back to build up a new organization. Chief, look, I'm giving you a lot. I ought to get a break.
Well, it won't hurt you to cooperate.
Well, they're the ones that did the killing, Ed and Charlie.
Why?
They didn't like Enfield. They were sitting in the back seat with him. They didn't say anything till after, though. Then they said that they were afraid he'd spill everything. They knew he was going to leave town, and they said nobody'd ever find out how he was killed.
Well, the other 2 men still teamed up with him?
No, this was a first job for Lewick and Clark. They work at the Ace Trucking Company.
Now, what about the Thayer brothers? Where are they?
They're staying at their old place out at the city limit.
The Tuxedo Club?
Yeah.
Well, that's still closed up.
Well, that's where they are, unless they left when they learned you picked me up.
Well, how would they know that?
Look, I'm giving you an awful lot of stuff, Chief. They know because one of their friends has been following me around ever since the job.
Sergeant Biggins. Yes, sir? The Thayer brothers are back in town. They're back? According to Hoffman, they've holed up in their old joint. Get 2 or 3 squad cars out there. I don't want them to try to take the place because the Thayers have probably been tipped. I want some roadblocks set up in case they try to leave.
I'll get right on it.
And get 5 or 6 of our best men to meet me here at 4:30. We'll go out and pick them up at dusk.
I got the background on the Thayer brothers while Chief Allen and I were on our way to pick up the other 2 men named by Huffman. They'd been at the bottom of most of the organized crime in Youngstown when Allen had taken over. The fight against them had become almost a personal one. It ended when the Thayers left town, and the fear now was that it would be reopened. There was no trouble from William Lewick and Vernon Clark, a couple of first-timers out for some easy money. Their statements bore out Carl Huffman's that the Thayer brothers had done the killing. At 4:30, the process of bringing them in got underway.
According to Fredericks, they tried to leave a little after 3. They pulled out in a gray sedan, but when they saw the roadblock, they turned back. So that's what we face. Know we're coming, and they're waiting for us. You men were picked because you've all been up against them before. You know what to expect. Anybody have a question? All right, we better get started. Anything happening, Biggins?
Some guy from a grocery store back near that crossroad got curious and came to talk to us. He says the Thayers have been coming in his store. He says they've been drunk the last couple of days.
That's something to think about, Chief.
Yeah, I know it is.
If they're gassed up, they're a cinch to make a play.
Yeah, we'll see. Who's that up ahead?
Well, it's Samuels. He got here just a minute ago. Walter and Hayes are with him, both with Thompsons.
Good. Hey, no lights in the place.
I don't know what they're thinking. They must know we're coming.
What's the layout of the place?
The living quarters are in the rear. That's where they'll probably be, but... Biggins.
Yes, sir.
You take one of the men with the Thompson, go in the front. I want the other to cover me at the rear door.
Walter's back there already.
Good. Well, let's get it done then. Dollar?
It's my case, too, Chief.
Okay. Good luck, Biggins.
Yes, sir.
I'm moving in now, Walter. Right.
That's the door, Dollar.
Good. There aren't any windows.
No. You can cover me from here.
Don't be a hero in front of that door.
I'll watch it.
Ed, Charlie, police. Chief Allen.
He's all right.
All right, Walter. The Thompson, if they want it that way. Hey, come on, give me a hand.
Expense account item 2, $104 miscellaneous. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $195.20. Remarks? A reasonable figure, I think, considering not only the recovery of most of the stolen money, but also the fact that the company received the personal services of my good friend, Chief of Police Edward J. Allen. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can now be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production, Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Ed Begley, Bill Johnstone, Parley Bear, Virginia Gregg, Tim Graham, and Stacey Harris. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
When you read the headlines on Korea, remember this. Industry can produce the bombers, the munitions, but only you can give the blood. And it's your blood that is saving the lives of 97 out of every 100 wounded men. Don't wait till it's too late. Give now. Call your local Red Cross Blood Center for an appointment. And then keep that date to save a life. A comical catastrophe is about to overtake a department store when Mortimer Snerd takes a pre-Christmas job behind the counter. The full details, plus a visit by musical comedy star Lisa Kirk, will be heard tomorrow night on the Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy Show. Stay tuned now for the Vaughn Monroe Show, which follows immediately over most of these same stations. And remember, King Arthur Godfrey's Round Table holds court every Sunday afternoon on the CBS Radio Network.
Welcome back. Well, this episode really is a bit of an oddity in old-time radio because it uses a real person as a character. Edward Joseph Allen was a real-life policeman. During World War II, he worked with the FBI on sabotage, espionage cases, and went to the FBI Academy. Then in 1948, he became the chief of police of Youngstown, Ohio. And he teamed up with the mayor to drive the mafia out of Youngstown. And he succeeded to such a degree, the city was awarded the title in 1950 of All-American City. So truly one of those great forgotten men brought to life here in Johnny Dollar. Very nice tribute they managed to set up. I should mention that Johnny Dollar would in the future, in the Bailey run, would use a lot of real places, background on real people, such as station managers. But this is somewhat of a unique tribute, and as I said, very nicely done. I should mention that we are nearing the end of our Edmund O'Brien run. We only have 3 more Edmund O'Brien episodes to play for you, so be sure to listen and to enjoy them. And then we'll be on to John Lunn. So, yep, there are changes, slow but steady, happening on our lineup. Also, I continue to review a lot of the detective shows I'm not as familiar with. And I've added another one to the list of shows I intend to do. It's called Dyke Easter, Private Detective. And it's just a good, ordinary detective show. I won't include it as an extra or anything, because there was actually only one episode of Dyke Easter that's in circulation. Finally, we have one listener comment off of Podcast Alley. I'm recording this on September the 1st, so this is fresh off the web, as you might say. Thank you for introducing me to such a great mix of old radio shows. I love to listen at work when I have something monotonous to get through. Thanks again. All right. Well, thank you so much for your comments. Be sure to listen closely to our opening commentary next Friday. It's important if you're going to understand the episode that will follow, as it's a partial episode, but we're missing the beginning. But thanks to some information I have, I know how it begins and can kind of get us set up to listen to and enjoy the story. So join us next Friday for that, and on Monday for Barrie Craig, Confidential Investigator. In the meanwhile, remember, listener support campaign ends tomorrow, support.greatdetectives.net. Give us a call, 208-991-4783. And become one of our friends over on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.